Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was 10 tails Jinchuriki in Bleach. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by AnimeTL, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. The Sage of Six Paths had just separated the 10 tails and the 9 beasts had come to creation. Naruto and the others had been picked to become the containers for the 9 bijus. The 9 beasts were sealed into 9 children. On the day of the sealing they weren't human anymore. They were Jinchuriki. They were just children when it happened, but they could remember the sage's last words. You children are the containers for these 9. You all are very special, you have become immortal and are the guardians of a great power. Beware, there are others who would want to use this power for evil purposes. When you and your beast become one you will be powerful, but not invincible. There are monsters called hollows who would wish to devour you to increase their own power. There are also beings called the Shinigami. They would wish to use your power for themselves. Make your peace with the monsters and they will aid you against any adversaries you face. The sage had said before his death. Naruto, Fu, Killer Bee, Gaara, Rashi, Yugito, Han, Yugura and Utakata have did what the sage had asked and made peace with their beasts. Although it was hard and the beasts were stubborn, they eventually became allies. To avoid capture from the Shinigami and Hollows, they all had went on their separate paths and have rarely ever seen each other again. Being immortal meant they would live forever, change their form to any animal, and could change their age to look however they wanted. Weirdly, they couldn't change their faces, like they could change to whatever age they wanted, but couldn't look like another person. The only way to find a container would be to be a Shinigami, Hollow, or another container. Naruto was living in a house he bought and was just living his immortal life. Naruto had liked staying a teenager so he stayed that way. Now he was out in the neighborhood taking a walk. Having a beast inside him meant he could sense spirits and hollows. Right now Naruto saw an orange-haired teenager picking up a vase and it seemed he could see the spirit. Every now and then Naruto liked to cause a little mischief in the world of the mortals, so he went to talk to the orange-haired boy. So you can see ghosts too? Naruto asked. Yeah, I can. Since you asked me that question I'm assuming you can see them as well. The orange-haired boy said. Naruto nodded. This kid is special. He can see ghosts already. That would mean a hollow would try to come get him. This might be fun after all. Naruto thought. Hey, are you in high school? Naruto asked. Yeah, I go to Karakura High School. What school do you go to? Ichigo asked curious. I just moved here. I'm going to Karakura High School too. I'm sorry I don't know your name. Naruto said. I'm Ichigo Kurosaki. Who are you? I'm Naruto Uzumaki. It was nice meeting you Ichigo and I'll see you in school. Naruto said and walked away. After centuries of living you learn how to pick up information without getting caught. Now Naruto was walking to Karakura High School to enroll there. After a little convincing, Naruto was going to high school. Let's just see what happens. The next day, Naruto had bought a school uniform and was on the way to high school. So Kurama, what do you think of that Ichigo kid? Naruto asked his beast. He's special, I'll give him that. Now leave me alone, I'm trying to sleep. Kurama said then slept. After waiting in the hall, he was about to be introduced. Kids, I'd like for you to meet our new student, Naruto Uzumaki. He'll be joining us today. I'd like for you all to make him feel welcome. The teacher said. So this is a classroom, doesn't look like it'll be much fun. Naruto thought. After that, he found a seat and just went through high school. It was agonizing and the lunches were terrible. During the free hour he just slept. He was hoping for excitement and he got it. He was about to get up and go home when he was stopped by a couple of bullies. Hey new kid, don't you know that you need to pay a fee for leaving class? One bully asked. Maybe this will be fun. Naruto thought and his power spiked a little. After that he felt someone was watching him. The kid had purple hair, glasses and was really skinny. Naruto had a feeling that kid knew what he was and he didn't like it. He was taken out of his thoughts when the bully pulled him back into the conversation. Hey, don't you know it's rude to ignore someone who's talking to you? I'm sorry, but I usually ignore trash like you. Naruto said and was about to walk away. What did you say? I said, I usually ignore trash like you. Naruto repeated. The bully had tried to punch him and Naruto easily blocked him. I'm tired of this. This isn't fun anymore. Naruto grabbed one bully and judo flipped him into the hallway. Naruto was then charged by the other two and he beat them down easily. After seeing that someone was very interested in Naruto, Naruto walked home. On the way home he saw Ichigo going into the house next door. It turned out Ichigo was his neighbor. That wasn't the only thing that surprised him though. He had smelled 2 Shinigamis and a hollow nearby. And both Shinigami were in Ichigo's house. Of course. How could I not figure it out? Ichigo is the way he is because one of his parents is a Shinigami. Naruto thought. It was getting dark and Naruto was about to sleep when he heard a monstrous roar. He looked outside and saw a huge hole in Ichigo's house. Why couldn't this happen during school? Naruto asked and jumped out of his window. He ran and found one of the Shinigami giving her Zanpakuto to Ichigo. The Shinigami was wearing a usual black robe and sandals, she had black hair and a strand of it went between her eyes. Naruto saw Ichigo stabbing himself with a sword and a bright white glow appeared. Ichigo was wearing a black robe and was carrying a huge Zanpakuto. He then charged the hollow and destroyed it in one swipe. He was about to run back to his house when he was blinded. What the? When he looked up, he saw the girl Shinigami and Ichigo in front of him. So one of the legendary 9 Jinchuriki was around here. What are you doing here? She said. What's a Jinchuriki? Ichigo asked. A Jinchuriki is an immortal who has one of the 9 beasts sealed inside him or her. They are also very powerful. I'm sure he could have taken down that hollow easily. The girl said. Yeah, you caught me, but that doesn't mean you can keep me Shinigami. I saw what happened and I've been to the Soul Society before. If you call the Soul Society, they'll know what you did. Naruto said and broke the binds. Besides, you're powerless. I don't have to be worried about you, and Ichigo, you don't know what you've gotten yourself into. Oh, and see you in school. Naruto said and went back into his house. Naruto was seriously thinking about going to school again, but the purple-haired kid intrigued him. He had to find out more about him. When he went into the class, he found Ichigo and the Shinigami there. What are you doing here? Naruto said. I came here to watch him. What are you doing here? Rukia asked. I go to school here. Naruto said, not giving anything away. Why would one of the legendary 9 need to go to school? Rukia asked, suspicious. I wanted to have some fun, and what better place would a teenager be than in a high school? The bell had rung and Rukia was introduced to the class. Kids, it seems that we have another new student. Please welcome Rukia Kichiki. Hi, it's nice to meet you all. I'm so very glad to be here. I hope we all can be great friends. Rukia said in a perfect pitchy voice. During lunch period, Naruto was eating with the guys on the roof and Rukia was eating with the girls outside. On the roof. Hey Ichigo, how come the newbie is with us? Kigo complained. Naruto was getting irritated. He hasn't heard someone as annoying as him since that Hitler guy was talking about blonde hair and blue eyes. He decided this was boring and decided to see what the girls were doing. Outside, Naruto found the girls under some trees and talking about girl stuff. He had transformed into a bird and was listening to everything the girls were saying. So what do you guys think of the new guy? One of the girls asked. I think I might have a new sparring partner. Did you see the way he handled those guys? Totsuki said. I think he's just a troublemaker. Rukia said, knowing Naruto was there. Really, Rukia? You were looking at him a lot during class. Michiru said. I don't know what you're talking about. Fine. So Orihime, what do you think of him? He's pretty cute, huh? Chizuru said, trying to grope Orihime. I guess so. Orihime said, thinking about Ichigo. This was fun. Naruto was listening on to the entire thing in amusement. Mortals were always fun to watch. The bell had rung and Naruto flew back to the classroom before anyone got there and changed back to human. He waited for class to start and observed the purple-haired kid. When class was over, Naruto decided to just confront him. The bell had rung and Naruto walked over to Ryu's desk. What are you? Naruto asked. I'm surprised. Since you travel in between worlds and have been living for centuries, I would have thought you would know a Quincy when you saw one. Ryu said. I heard they were extinct. So forgive me for being surprised. I guess my old age is getting to me. Naruto said. What's a Jinchuriki doing here? I always thought you guys never stayed in one place too long. I like it in this town. It keeps me on my toes. I'm also guessing you know about the other two. Naruto said. You mean about the Shinigamis? Yes, I know that they were in class. You're interesting. Living forever can be hell if nothing exciting ever happens. Naruto said and walked back to his house. The Soul Society had been watching Rukia and were surprised to find a Jinchuriki. They were always trying to find the legendary 9, but it was extremely difficult. The Jinchuriki could travel anywhere between dimensions and were always elusive. The only thing the Soul Society could go on was the ancient sightings and the special Reishi they emitted. Jinchuriki were balanced between demonic and heavenly Reishi, depending on which form they decide to take. Jinchuriki have 4 forms. The first is their demonic form. The Jinchuriki can become covered in demonic Reishi and are powerful. That's why hollows go after Jinchuriki. They want to devour the demonic Reishi to become more powerful. The next form is the human form. The human form hides and can lower the Reishi to hide, but if a hollow or Shinigami are close enough they can sense them. The third form is their deity form. Their deity form are powerful like their demonic form but different. When they're in their deity form, their body becomes Reishi and you feel a sense of peace. In their deity form they can make a weaker version of their beast and attack with it. That would be why the Shinigami want them. They want to use that heavenly Reishi to make themselves more powerful. The last form is their beast form. It's when they become their beast. They take the form of their beast and become unbelievably powerful. In that form they can defeat 5 captains at once, but there is a price. If they stay in that form for too long they become exhausted and they also have a time limit to how long they can keep it. Send in Byakuya, after decades we finally have a Jinchuriki in our sights and we can't waste this opportunity. Yamamoto said. The message was carried and Byakuya and Renji went to the world of the living. In the world of the living, a lot of things had happened so far. Naruto had been watching Ichigo's progress as a Shinigami. So far Ichigo had been killing hollows and doing consoles. During that time Rukia had been with him most of the time. While Ichigo didn't know it, he was affecting his classmates. One of Ichigo's classmates, Chad, had started to develop powers and another classmate, Orihime, could see hollows and had also started to developing powers as well. Naruto had to admit Ichigo was becoming a great Shinigami. Ichigo may have had his flaws, but he was a good kid. It was strange Ichigo had started missing school and he overheard Totsuki talking to Orihime about it. It's like this every year. Totsuki said and started telling Orihime about Ichigo. When Ichigo was a kid, he was a cheery and happy. Totsuki had said Ichigo had changed when his mother died. He had stopped being so happy and turned serious. Every year around this time Ichigo would go to the spot where his mother died and pace around. As Naruto heard all this, he remembered why life was hell. Well, people died every day, Jinchuriki were immortal. They had to watch death and pain people had felt because of it. Jinchuriki lived forever, which meant they would suffer forever. All they ever did was fight and run. That was their entire existence. They could never get too close to anyone because that would only make their existence worse. All their loved ones would grow old and die, they would just remain. Naruto had made that very mistake centuries ago and he knew the pain death had brought. Naruto had once found love and had tried to make it last, but it wasn't meant to be. When she died she left him a pendant with a picture of her. He knew that once she died, she would go through the cycle and forget him completely, so he never went to see her soul. It would just be too painful later. He had kept that pendant as a reminder. A reminder not to get too close to anyone. Because the closer you are to them the harder it would be to let them go. Naruto had started skipping school to see what was happening with Ichigo. Naruto needed to get into Ichigo's house and he thought of a plan. Naruto had wrote a note on a piece of paper saying please take care of him, then got a basket and taped it on the basket. He then knocked on the door and transformed into a puppy and went into the basket looking adorable. The girl had come and opened the door. She must have been Ichigo's sister. She had blonde hair and a compassionate face. She had saw him and Naruto turned on the cuteness. Who would leave such an adorable little guy all alone? She said and picked Naruto up. She put him near her face and he licked her nose. Naruto had to act like a puppy, so licking was normal. She took him into her house and put him on the table. Yuzu had went to call her dad. Hey dad. Could you look at this little guy please? Of course honey. Aizen said and ran into the room excited. When he saw Naruto, he could automatically tell Naruto was a Jinchuriki. Naruto could also tell Aizen was a Shinigami and growled. Aizen couldn't do anything but give him a checkup and let Yuzu handle him. After the checkup, Yuzu took him back to her room and took out a dish with food to eat. When Yuzu went out of the room, Naruto went to Ichigo's room by following his dog nose. Along the way Aizen blocked his path. What is your plan Jinchuriki? What's it to you Shinigami? You may act like a caring father, but I bet you haven't even told Ichigo about yourself. I bet you even know about that Shinigami girl in your son's room. Oh, and tell Kisuke that if he wants to find me then I'll be next door. Naruto said in a doggy-like voice then ran to Ichigo's room. In Ichigo's room, Ichigo had a depressed look on his face as he was laying in bed. Rukia had asked him about it, but to no avail. His family were going to his mother's grave to recuperate. Ichigo had turned his head and found a little puppy there. Man, did Yuzu pick you up? Naruto had decided to bark instead of answering. Ichigo couldn't sense Naruto's Reishi, but someone else in his room could. Ichigo, that's Rukia, couldn't finish when she saw Naruto. Rukia was always the type to fall for cuteness. Naruto had gone on with the act and did what any ordinary puppy would do. He licked and barked. Ichigo had an annoyed look on his face. You were going to say something and you just go gaha over that puppy. Just say what you were going to say. Fine. This adorable little guy is Naruto. Rukia said while playing with Naruto's paws. Sup Ichigo. I was in the neighborhood and decided to visit. By the way, your sister was really nice. Naruto said in a doggy-like voice. Ichigo had a disbelieved look on his face. He walked over to Naruto and poked him. That had pissed Naruto off. Knock it off. Now Ichigo, I have some stuff to talk to you about some things. Rukia, you stay as well. After all this is your fault as well. And tell that stuffed lion if he doesn't stop staring at me I'll rip him to shreds. Naruto threatened cutely. Han didn't like how close was to Rukia and gave Naruto a dark glare. You want to fight doggy boy, then let's fight. Naruto sighed and closed the door. No matter what century you're in, there will always be guys like that. Naruto transformed into a lion just to shut Khan up. You want to play little lion? Then let's play. Naruto said then bared with fangs. Han freaked out and went to Rukia for protection. Naruto transformed into his human form and explained. You see Ichigo, ever since you've become a Shinigami and Rukia lost her powers, the Soul Society has been watching. They know about you and have probably already sent other Shinigami to bring Rukia back. If they do know about what Rukia did, then I'm assuming they know about me as well. In which case they'll send one of the captains to try and bring me and Rukia to the Soul Society. They know Jinchuriki are peaceful and know we can't fight in such a populated area with our full strength. When they do, Ichigo, I want you to go to a man called Kisukirahara. He owns a shop nearby and Rukia has been buying Shinigami supplies from there. Where do you think she got the soul candy to turn that little pipsqueak to life? Anyway, I'm sure Kisuk will eventually come to you first. You'll know him when you see him. I usually never work with Shinigami, but not all of them are bad. The Shinigamis will come, Ichigo, and when they do, you need to be prepared. After they get Rukia, they'll go find you and make you return her powers, and if they succeed you might die. I would teach you the ways of the Shinigami, but I haven't used my Zanpakuto in a long time, and Kisuk would be a better teacher. Naruto said. I thought you were a Jinchuriki, so how could you have a Zanpakuto? Ichigo said. I was once human as well, Ichigo. Even after the process she stayed with my soul. I had been watching the Shinigami and have learned how to use a Zanpakuto. Naruto answered. After Naruto had explained everything, someone knocked on the door. Naruto had transformed back into his puppy form and waited for Ichigo to open the door. It was Yuzu. Sorry Ichigo, I'll watch this little guy harder from now on. I think I'll call you Trouble. Yuzu said, picking up puppy Naruto and carried him back into her room. Ichigo had a disbelieved look on his face. Naruto had just finished talking about some serious stuff and now he's being carried off by his sister. The next day, Naruto was on Yuzu's lap as the Kurosaki family was going to their recuperation. The Kurosakis were unloading their stuff and Naruto was exploring until he smelled a familiar scent. He ran back and found Rukia there. What are you doing here? Rukia didn't answer. Instead, she picked Naruto up and played with his puppy ears. Naruto felt happy, but he needed to fight it. Stop, that. Now why are you here? Naruto said in his adorable little puppy voice and changed back to his human form. I'm here to watch Ichigo. Why else? You don't have to worry about that because I'm watching him. Now I got to go back. Naruto transformed into a bunny because they were faster than puppies and they looked common around the area. He didn't know the consequences of that transformation and was immediately scooped up by Rukia. Put me down. Naruto squirmed. Rukia just hugged him tighter and rubbing her head on Naruto's fur. After a lot of squirming and pushing, Naruto was free and ran the hell away from Rukia. What is her problem? Naruto wondered. Naruto hopped at high speeds back to the Kurosakis and then transformed back into a puppy. Where were you, Trouble? I was worried. Yuzu scolded. Naruto whimpered and gave her the puppy dog eyes. Oh, I can't stay mad at you. Come on, you're part of the family, which means you participate in the games too. Naruto had a troubled look on his puppified face. He never had a family before and now he was part of the Kurosaki family. He couldn't tell if he should be happy or if he should get out of there immediately. He was actually wondering if bringing Yuzu into his world would be a good idea. Yuzu had carried him over to grave and everybody was there. They all had a sad smile on their faces. Naruto could tell this and knew about how his wife's death and knew that his wife might never come back. Although it was true that when a soul is eaten by a hollow, its existence is absorbed. Even if Shinigami were to kill the hollow, it wouldn't make any difference. The souls eaten by that hollow would have already vanished from existence. Jinchuriki were the only thing that could take a soul back thanks to their special Reishi. Once they've killed the hollow, the Jinchuriki's Reishi holds the soul in the world. If Naruto could find the hollow that ate Ichigo's mom, he could bring her back into the world of the living and the Shinigamis could take care of the rest. During some time Ichigo had walked out of the games and went off to the river. It had started pouring down and it seemed as if a premonition of dread had come. As if a horrible nightmare had come back. Naruto could feel the dread and had run off. He could sense a powerful hollow nearby and it was heading to Ichigo. Rukia had beat him there and was with Ichigo. If that hollow reached them they would be defenseless. Rukia couldn't use her Zanpakuto and Ichigo was still inexperienced. When Naruto was out of sight he transformed into a cheetah and ran at high speeds toward Ichigo and Rukia. The hollow had appeared and Rukia was very injured. Ichigo was just barely holding off the Grand Fissure. Naruto had just arrived and reverted back into his human form, then he relieved Ichigo and Rukia of the battle. You guys are in no condition to fight a hollow of this caliber. You guys won't last much longer if this continues. I'll be taking over now. Ichigo, is this the bastard that ate your mom? Naruto asked. Ichigo nodded and was injured. You take a rest. If this hollow is the one I'm thinking of, then I'll be doing the Soul Society a favor. Naruto said, then turned into his demonic form. So you're the hollow that's avoided the Shinigamis for over 50 years. I'm not impressed. Naruto said, then unleashed a blast at the hollow. Before the Grand Fissure could get away he was grabbed by an extending demonic claw. You're not going anywhere yet. I still have to take back the souls you've eaten. Naruto said and shoved his demonic hand down the Grand Fisher's throat. The souls were taken out. That's all of them and now time to take you down to hell. Naruto said and crushed the Grand Fisher. When he did, the doors from hell opened up and sent out chains to swallow the Grand Fisher's soul. After that was done, Naruto transformed back into his original form. Ichigo. Come over here a sec. There's somebody I want you to meet. After Ichigo finished performing consoles, he went over to Naruto. Alright, now what do you want? What Ichigo saw had shocked him. Standing there was his mother. Ichigo, what's wrong? Rukia asked. I'll explain it to you. Naruto said and pulled Rukia away. Naruto explained it to Rukia. The Grand Fisher ate Misaki's body whole and so her body was held in suspended animation. So when Naruto destroyed the Grand Fisher her body was released. Ichigo was crying and was holding on to the mother he lost long ago. Naruto and Rukia left Ichigo and his mom to reunite and went over to the other Kurosakas. But the others, Naruto went back in his human form and since Rukia was going to get found out anyway, they might as well get over with it. Aizen had saw Naruto and Rukia and acted like his goofy dad persona. Naruto, Rukia, it's been so long. How's it been? Yuzu had a confused look while Karen had a suspicious stare at them both. It's been good Aizen, I just finished talking with Ichigo and man did he change. These two must be Karen and Yuzu, I haven't seen those two since they were just babies. Naruto acted out. It's nice to see you two again, but what's with the sad smiles? Smiles should be happy. Naruto continued. You see we're here to pay our respects to our mother. She died when we were younger. Yuzu said sadly. I see, I'm sorry I interrupted. Yuzu cheer up, I'm sure she's very happy to have such a smart and caring daughter and trust me, good things happen to those who are good people. And Karen, you're just like your brother. Strong and hardened, but you're smart also. Open up once in a while, you never know who's listening. Now excuse me ladies, my friend and I have to talk to your silly dad in private. Naruto pulled Rukia and Aizen aside. You're welcome Aizen. I'm sure you can sense her as well, so there's no point in hiding it. Aizen had a hardened look but thanked Naruto anyway. Thank you Naruto. I appreciate what you did. This will be hard to explain to those two though. I can be very simple. Just tell them the truth. I also think you should get her a room because living in a closet just isn't normal. Naruto said and pointed at Rukia. Rukia kept saying she liked it in Ichigo's closet, but she agreed. Aizen told them that he would make up a story for Rukia and he would avoid any questions that they'll have. Naruto then walked out of sight leaving the Kurosaki family to their reunion. Aizen had did a good job avoiding the questions that his daughters had asked him. The Kurosaki family was whole again and Naruto stayed out of his dog form for a while. Yuzu of course put up missing posters up for him. Naruto had to stay away. He couldn't get attached to them. He was now just taking a walk around the neighborhood and found a black cat. Well Yoruchi, long time no see. I haven't seen you since that big incident in the Soul Society. So how are you doing? I'm doing quite well. Those kids you looked after are becoming stronger. I'll have to start their training soon. And Kisuke. They'll go to Ichigo soon. Yoruchi said and ran off. Things were going well and now the kids were about to be prepared. It wouldn't be long before the captain would show up and now the kids were prepared. Naruto had did all that he could for now and had nothing to do. I'll train too. Naruto said and opened up a portal to Hueco Mundo. Hueco Mundo. Naruto was surrounded in by hollows in the land of the sand. Damn that was fast. Guess it's time for training. Naruto said and a sword materialized in his hand. It looked like an average blade and had an electric blue hilt. Flash, Hurration. In a huge clap of thunder the sword had transformed into a tri-pronged kunai knife with a talisman tied at the bottom. I haven't used this in a while. Better start training. Naruto charged the army of hollows and destroyed them in a flash. The hollows all crumpled and became regular souls again. The good souls were transported to the living where the soul reapers would take care of them and the bad were taken to the pits of hell. Naruto had been in Hueco Mundo for days and survived. He didn't have a moment's rest until the hollows stopped attacking and opened up a portal to the mortal world. What the crap, what's luring the hollows to the mortal world? Better check it out. Naruto said and opened a portal then jumped in. In the world of the living, Ryu and Ichigo were killing hollows. The hollows were appearing all over Karakura town and they were starting to overwhelm the others. Byakuya and Renji arrived in Karakura town just arrived and were killing the hollows as well. Looks like the captain and one of his subordinates are here. I was hoping to have a little more time. Oh well, better now than never. Naruto said and destroyed the hollows. This had been going on for a while until a huge rip in space appeared and out came Amino's Grand. I was wondering when one of those would show up. Now should I take care of it or what the? Naruto stopped talking when he saw Ichigo and Uryu. Ichigo's Zanpakuto was strapped onto his head and Uryu was about to launching a giant arrow at the hollow on top of Ichigo's head. That won't work. It's funny but pointless. That hollow will be killed before they even get a chance. Naruto said, and a stream of pink cherry blossoms petals attacked the hollow. The hollow was destroyed and everyone was shocked except Naruto. Byakuya had just destroyed the Minos and was coming toward the others. Naruto had jumped off the roof he was on and walked toward the captain. "Well, I haven't seen you since you were a child, Byakuya. Look at you now, a captain, and you have a little follower with you. I assume you're here for Rukia and me." "That's correct. I was ordered to bring the Jinchuriki and my sister to the Soul Society," Byakuya said. Rukia was behind a nearby tree and heard everything. "What do you mean take them to the Soul Society?" Ichigo asked. He meant what he said, Ichigo. "He's going to try and take me and Rukia to the Soul Society. I need your help, Ichigo. I can't take them down without destroying the city. So I'm going to only use my Zanpakuto. The rest of you stay out of this. You think you can take on the redhead, Ichigo? Count on it," Ichigo said. The fight began with Ichigo against Renji and Byakuya against Naruto. With Naruto and Byakuya. "Byakuya, you know as well as I do one captain isn't enough to take me down. You know that you can't fight me at your fullest power either. That should even everything out," Byakuya said and attacked Naruto. The cherry blossom petals came at streams and chased after Naruto. Naruto's Zanpakuto was special. He could teleport anytime he wished and all that would remain would be a yellow flash. He just teleported every time the petals came too close. "If this is a captain then I'm very disappointed," Naruto said, then slashed Byakuya with Ichigo and Renji. Ichigo and Renji were clashing blades against each other. Ichigo was doing well against Renji even though he was a lieutenant. Roar, Zabumaru. Renji's sword had changed shape and became much more deadly. They didn't need to say anything to each other because words at this point would be useless. They just battled and held their ground. Ichigo may have been able to stand in battle against Renji, but he was too inexperienced. Renji had been doing this for a long time, so he had more stamina than Ichigo. The fight lasted a while and they were both injured, but Ichigo got the worst end of it. He was exhausted and running out of power. Renji was about to finish Ichigo off when he was stopped. "Renji, stop. I'll go, just please leave him." "I'm afraid I can't do that, Rukia. I'll have to destroy his soul's fatal areas. He'll die anyway," Renji said and slashed Ichigo. But that last slash Ichigo was brought down. "Ichigo." Rukia tried running to him but was stopped by Renji. "Stop it, Rukia. Do you want to make things worse for yourself? He's dead, leave him be," Renji shouted. Rukia didn't say anything but went to Ichigo anyway. After she was done she went willingly with Renji. Renji opened the gate but something had grabbed onto his foot. "I'd appreciate it if you would stop talking like I want here. He shouldn't be moving after what I did to him," Renji thought. Ichigo was bleeding and coughing up blood. If this continued he'd really die. With that over they went back to the Soul Society. Back with Naruto and Byakuya. Byakuya was injured and Naruto was tiring. To flash like that took energy and to dodge all of those attacks took up a lot. Naruto managed to wound Byakuya immensely. This was a battle where they had to fight without going full force. Byakuya couldn't use his Bankai and Naruto couldn't use his beast form. Naruto had refused to go into his demonic or deity form for a reason. But the bait still around the hollows would be after him and that would give him even more trouble. This battle isn't getting anywhere. You could leave now and save face Byakuya. You can't beat me alone and you know it. Byakuya knew he couldn't defeat him, but he had to try. It was his orders. He was about to attack again, but something stopped him. A hell butterfly had flown past and landed on his hand. "I see. This is where we part ways, Jinchuriki," was all Byakuya said and opened a gate to the Soul Society. Naruto had sensed that Rukia was gone and knew the Soul Society had gotten to her. He threw his Zanpakuto in the air and it disappeared. "You guys don't have to worry about Ichigo. I got him," Naruto said and carried Ichigo back to his house. At the Kurosakis, Naruto had carried Ichigo all the way back to his house and was now standing at Ichigo's house. He rang the doorbell and Ichigo's mom was there. "Hey, I was just bringing Ichigo back." "Wait, you're that boy who?" She was interrupted by Isin. Now honey, we need to take care of Ichigo first before asking questions," Isin said and carried Ichigo to the couch. Misaki agreed and went with her husband. Naruto was about to leave when he remembered something. He put out his hand and a glowing orb of Reishi appeared. He threw it at Misaki and it covered her body, but she didn't notice. "That should be enough," Naruto said and went back to his house. Ichigo's wounds have healed and he was going to school regularly. When he reached the classroom everyone was acting like nothing had happened and Rukia was gone. Everyone was talking about their summer plans and no one bothered to ask anything about Rukia. Ichigo had spent the entire day thinking about Rukia and the school day had ended. "Come on Ichigo, we need to talk," Naruto said. Ichigo had been too busy thinking that he didn't see Naruto walk up to him. Naruto led Ichigo to the roof for a private talk. "You noticed it too, haven't you, about Rukia?" Ichigo nodded. "Is that what happens when a Soul Reaper leaves? No one remembers them? That's pretty much it. She's probably going to be severely punished for what she did. Let me tell you something that I've realized over the years that I've been alive. Most souls only have 3 choices after death. They can become hollows or soul reapers, or they can choose to just live their afterlife. Those are their only choices. Soul reapers say they want to keep the balance, and I won't say they're wrong to want that, but for most part that isn't the case. Most soul reapers only want power. If you go to the soul society and ask the souls who want to live their lives, they'll tell you. Most of the soul reapers flaunt around their status to feel powerful, but when there's something more powerful than them, they like the Jinchuriki, they feel threatened and try to destroy it or take control of it. You know why I'm telling you this, Ichigo? Ichigo only nodded his no. I'm telling you this so you know your choices after death. Even knowing the things I've told you, do you still want to become a soul reaper? I'm not like those soul reapers you talked about. I don't care about power. I care about my friends, and I'm going to rescue Rukia from the soul society. If you really plan on rescuing Rukia and becoming a soul reaper again, then follow me. Naruto said, and his tri-pronged kunai knife had appeared in his hand. Naruto had just teleported them both to Urahara's shop. Well, it's been a while, Naruto. What do I owe for this lovely visit? At the crap, Kisuke, you know why I'm here. This is the kid that Yuruchi informed you about. Bye, Ichigo, and I hope you become a soul reaper again, and don't worry about your family, I'll take care of it. Naruto said and teleported somewhere to ask for help. A couple days have passed and Ichigo had awakened his soul reaper powers. Yuruchi had trained Chad and Orihime to use their powers. Naruto had asked an old friend for help and now everyone was about to go to the soul society. Ichigo was walking to Urahara's shop and when he reached there he got a little surprise. Chad, Orihime, Uryu. Why are you guys here? After he said that, Yuruchi had walked up to him and explained. After a little freaking out about a talking cat, Naruto and his old friend arrived. Sorry we're late, everyone, but you wouldn't believe how hard it was to find this guy. Naruto said sheepishly. The friend Naruto had brought was a teenager that had red hair, a brown hoodie, shorts, and on his forehead was a red tattoo that had the kanji for love. Guys, I'd like for you to meet Gaara. An old friend and also a Jinchuriki. The introductions were said and done, and they were now preparing to go inside the Soul Society. Kisuke had informed everyone on the risk, and everyone but Naruto and Gaara went inside the gate that Kisuke had made. Naruto and Gaara had opened their own gate to the Soul Society and waited for the others in Rukongai. The others had arrived. Okay guys, let's start the plan. Ichigo and his friends went on ahead while Naruto and Gaara stayed behind. Hey man, I'm sorry for pulling you into this. But you know the others don't like to do anything risky. It's alright. You're my friend and you helped me before. This is my way to repay you. Ichigo's group were going to be the one who were going to get Rukia. Naruto and Gaara were going to distract the Soul Reapers by transforming into their deity form. Once they do, the Soul Reapers would go to them. Ichigo was now going headfirst into the Soul Reaper quarters until Naruto stopped him. You moron, if you go in headfirst they'll split up the Soul Reapers and the plan will be ruined. If you want to rescue Rukia, then let me and Gaara go in there first. Naruto materialized Hiraishin and it was already in Shikai form. You ready, Gaara? Gaara nodded and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, then they disappeared in a flash of yellow light. They appeared inside the Seireitei and there was no one around, at least not yet. Both Naruto and Gaara switched to their deity form and then a huge blast of pure white and silver Reishi was blown all over. When the Reishi was finished surrounding them both, they changed. Naruto was bright orange with black markings around his body and he radiated power. Gaara's body was similar to Naruto. He was light brown with similar black markings around his body. They both had power beyond that of most Soul Reapers and this wasn't even their strongest form. In case of an emergency they both materialized their Zanpakutos. Gaara's Zanpakuto was a spear. The spear was brown and blood red. It was a long staff, but when you looked at the top it looked like a demonic hand. The moment Gaara and Naruto went into that form they were being swarmed by Soul Reapers from all around. Well old friend, the battle's about to begin, remember who I warned you about. If you sense him near, then switch to sense. Now let's see who can take out the most Soul Reapers. They were now surrounded by a bunch of cocky Soul Reapers. They had heard tales of the Jinchuriki, but they never believed it. They would learn soon enough. The battle began and Naruto was down Soul Reapers before they could even draw their Zanpakutos. Gaara hadn't even needed to move to beat the Soul Reapers who were charging him. Gaara turned the entire surrounding area into sand thanks to his Zanpakuto. Now the Soul Reapers were being dragged into the sand by the sand and Gaara was shooting out air bullets with the tips of his fingers. While Naruto and Gaara were beating down Soul Reapers, Ichigo and his team were being led by Yuruchi. Not a single person had tried to stop them thanks to Gaara and Naruto. Man, Naruto and Gaara must be powerful if not a single Soul Reaper is trying to stop us. Don't get distracted. You need to rescue Rukia and you can't do that if you're distracted. Yuruchi said in cat form. They ran until they reached the Senseikyuu. They went in until they were stopped by Byakuya. Needless to say, a battle was about to start. But Naruto and Gaara were fighting the Nava Soul Reapers at least until two surprising Soul Reapers showed up. Captain Commander Genryusai Yamamoto and Captain of the 4th Division Retsu Unohana. Naruto had an disbelieved look on his face. Unohana was the woman who gave him his pendant. The one he fell in love with. The one he never visited. Naruto had tears in his eyes. It had hurt so much when she had died. Now here she was alive, sort of. Rennie, it's great to see you again. It is good to see you as well, Naruto. I just wish we could have met again on better terms. Unohana said sadly. I swear Rennie, after all this is over, we'll catch up. Naruto said boldly. Naruto, was it? I have an offer for you. Yamamoto said. But the others? Ichigo was losing his fight with Byakuya. The others had tried to help, but the attempts were in vain. Ichigo was too inexperienced, and the others were injured. Byakuya was about to finish her off when Hell Butterfly landed on Byakuya. Yurichi took this time to get Ichigo and escaped. Byakuya took the remaining intruders and brought them to Yamamoto. But Ichigo and Yurichi had tended to Ichigo's wounds and was now waiting for time to heal his wounds. When he did come to, he needed training, and Yurichi was the one who was going to give it to him. If you saw the anime, then I don't need to write about that. But Naruto and Gaara, what is your offer? Naruto asked. You will be allowed to stay in the Soul Society if you allow us to study you. I am not your lab rat. The old man had warned me about you Soul Reapers, no offense Rennie. None taken Naruto. Unohana said kindly. Now then, the old man warned us about you Shinigami. You only want power, you don't care about balance. You only want power to rule above others, and in this case taking it from Jinchuriki would be the easiest way. Naruto accused. How about a wager then? That friend of yours, the one with orange hair. If he can rescue the prisoner, then we leave the Jinchuriki alone and your species will be able to come and go as you please from the Soul Society. But if I win the wager, you come willingly for studies and test. Well, do we have a deal? How do I know if this isn't some sort of trick? How can you prove to me that this isn't a trap? After all, you hardly have anything to lose, while me and the others could lose our lives. Maybe me and Gaara should just destroy this place. After all, it would be very simple. We beat all these Soul Reapers quite easily, and not even in our strongest form. Naruto said, pointing toward the hundreds of beaten Soul Reapers. You wouldn't dare. You wouldn't want to hurt your friends. Yamamoto threatened. What do you mean? Yamamoto explained how his friends had been captured and that he would let them go as a way to show that he was serious about the deal. Naruto looked at the women who had never left his heart. He didn't really have a choice in the matter. He said no, his friends were toast and the Jinchuriki would still be hunted, but he agreed and lost, he would be a goner with his friends and the Jinchuriki would still be hunted. If he agreed and won, then the Jinchuriki would be safe, no longer needed to run, and his friends would be safe. Question was Ichigo strong enough? Fine. I agree to your terms, but if I lose you leave the others alone, and that includes the other Jinchuriki and Ichigo and his friends. I can accept that. You and the other Jinchuriki will not be harmed and the Ryoka will be kept in the 4th barracks. Yamamoto said, then Shunpo to his office. I'm sorry Rennie, but I have to leave now, I need to do something. Naruto said, then returned to his human form, then disappeared. But Ichigo and Yurichi. Ichigo was training against Zangetsu in order to achieve Bankai. Naruto had shown up and was surprised to see Yurichi in her human form. How is he progressing, Yurichi? He's quite strong. I can see why you took an interest in him. Naruto nodded, then remembered something he wanted to know. So how'd he look when he saw you first transform into a human? I bet it was hysterical. Naruto laughed. He was like Tomato but with orange hair. He was so innocent. Yurichi laughed. Naruto laughed along with her until he remembered what he came to do. He held out his hand and a blood-red ball of Reishi appeared. When Ichigo wasn't looking, he slammed it into Ichigo's body. What the hell? What was that? Ichigo asked. Something that will help you later on. Good luck Ichigo, I'm counting on you. Naruto said and disappeared in a yellow flash. The games were about to begin and he had every intention on winning. Naruto was in the 4th barracks with Unohana and they were catching up with his lover. Unohana had told him about the years she'd been in the Soul Society and how much she missed him. Someone had walked into the room. Captain, you are needed in the medical wing, said a tall silver-haired woman. Thank you Aizen. We will continue this conversation when I get back Naruto. Wait, I forgot to give you something. Naruto said and gave her a kiss. It's been so long and the spark was still there. Unohana then left red-faced and Naruto had a proud grin on his face. Aizen was about to leave but was stopped by Naruto. Hey, could you show me around? Aizen couldn't help but feel afraid of Naruto. He had so much power and could do anything with it. He defeated over 500 Soul Reapers easily. With someone of this strength it was hard not to feel afraid. Aizen had been told stories from Unohana about a lover she had when she was still alive. She told her about a man whose soul knew pain and despair but still went on because he had no choice and also held love in his heart. A man who lost over and over again but became stronger because of it. And that man was standing right in front of her. I can't but I know someone who could. Aizen said and led him to another person who could show him around. They walked to a short teenager with long hair, blue eyes, and looked like he hadn't gotten a lot of sleep. "Hinata, could you show Naruto around the barracks?" Sure." Hinata said. Aizen then left to help the injured. "So you're the guy who helped Ichigo?" Naruto said. Hinata was nervous, more than usual. In front of him was one of the most powerful beings in the Soul Society. Yes sir. You don't have to be nervous. I won't kill you unless you give me reason to. Plus you tried to help Rukia even after knowing her crime. You're a good person, and Renji would never forgive me if I hurt one of her subordinates." Hinata didn't know if he should feel grateful or scared at what Naruto said. "Alright. I'll let MESH show why you around." Hinata then gave Naruto a tour of the barracks. Everything was going well until a certain captain showed up with his lieutenant. "See Captain Zaraki. What might you be looking for in the 4th barracks?" "Don't forget me." Kenny came here looking to fight a Jinjin. "We heard they were strong and thought it might be fun. We would have been here sooner, but Kenny is bad with directions," said a pink-haired little girl who was clinging on Zaraki's back. "I was following your directions. Anyway, I want to fight a Jinchuriki." Zaraki said. "I'm Naruto the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki. You must be captain of the 11th Division, Kenpachi, Zaraki. And that must be your lieutenant Yuichiro Kusajishi. You have whiskers Naru. Yuichiro said joyously. "Alright, so where do we fight? How about your barracks?" Naruto said. "Well, Kurama, this guy seems confident and there's something different about him. From my research it said that he's the only captain that didn't achieve Bankai or even Shikai. We might have to be careful." Naruto thought. "Alright, we might have to use that as an extra precaution. Now let's do this." Kurama said. Naruto's Zanpakuto appeared and he flashed Zaraki and Yuichiro to their barracks. Naruto began to change. His eyes turned red, his whisker-like scars were becoming more defined. 9 tails of red Reishi were coming out of Naruto. This was a half form. They retained their small size, could use their tails as limbs, and their physical strength increased tenfold. "Okay, let's go," Naruto said with his Zanpakuto twirling in his hand. Ichigo had climbed off of Kenpachi to watch the fight somewhere safer. Zaraki pulled out his beaten Zanpakuto and charged Naruto. Naruto blocked with the kunai and striked back. Zaraki kept attacking with power and every time their swords clashed there was a small burst of energy. Zaraki attacked without any disregard for his Zanpakuto, but Naruto watched carefully during every move and calculated his next move accordingly. Zaraki kept on attacking and Naruto managed to get in a lucky strike. "You managed to cut me. I guess there's no need to hold back," Zaraki said with a maniacal grin. Zaraki then removed his eye patch and a burst of Reishi came forth. Zaraki had released his power like he did with Ichigo. With that everyone saw the pillar of power and they rushed to see what it was. In a matter of minutes souls came to watch the battle between Naruto the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki and the captain of Squad 11 Zaraki Kenpachi. "Hey Zaraki, how about we give these souls a big performance?" Naruto sighed with a cheeky grin. Zaraki gave a grin, then released more Reishi and Yuichiro was cheering. Naruto decided that this one he was going to do alone. He receded Kurama's power, then threw his Zanpakuto into the heavens. Bankai. The sky began to darken and lightning cracked the skies with a loud boom. His Zanpakuto made its return trip with a clap of thunder when it returned to Naruto. The Zanpakuto changed. The hilt was black. The blade had turned into pure lightning and had 2 cloud-shaped metals on the side of the lightning and the size was 3 times of what it was before. Zaraki and Naruto clashed blades for one last time and the Reishi created a poof of smoke. Everyone watching the fight watched in amazement as they saw 2 powerful warriors stood their ground. The warriors had content grins on their faces before they both fell to the ground at the same time. Zaraki had a content grin as he found another worthy opponent to push him to his limits. Naruto just had fun during the fight. He'd never been pushed so far in a fight because he always relied on Kurama's power. Now he knew how strong he was without it. Naruto's wounds were now beginning to heal thanks to Kurama. "You idiot," Kurama said with a proud grin at his Jinchuriki. While everyone was distracted with the fight, Ichigo was on his way to Rukia. It was also then that Aizen made his move. As Ichigo was making his way to the Sakyoku but was stopped by Byakuya. Byakuya had come and tried to strike Ichigo, but thanks to the training he got from Yoruichi he saw the attack. "Why do you so persistently try to save Rukia? I'm the one who should be asking questions. Aren't you Rukia's brother? Why aren't you trying to save her?" Byakuya had a thoughtful look on his face for a moment but it was gone the moment it came. "What a pointless question, even if I tell you the answer, you wouldn't be able to understand. It's useless to continue this empty dialogue," Byakuya said and striked again. The battle continued but they were getting nowhere and Byakuya knew it too. "It looks like there's only one way to end this. Ichigo Kurosaki, I will kill you. Then with my own hands, I will carry out Rukia's execution," Byakuya said in his still emotionless tone. "No, that's not going to happen. I came here to make sure of that." As Ichigo and Byakuya were fighting, Gaara was completing what Ichigo was going to do. Gaara got Rukia out but was stopped by Aizen. I'm afraid I can't let you leave Jinchuriki. Then he took out his Zanpakuto. Naruto was in the 4th barracks getting his wounds healed by Unohana with a cocky grin on his face. Thanks Rennie for doing ow. Unohana had just tightened his bandages and hid her anger with a smile. Please Naruto, I would like it if you didn't get into fights that injure you like this. Okay Rennie? I'll only get into those kind of fights if I have no choice, okay? Unohana agreed to it and continued to bandage Naruto. Naruto was content until he sensed something. Jinchuriki all have a sense that could tell when one of them was in trouble, and right now Gaara was in trouble. Naruto materialized his Zanpakuto and changed to his demonic form along using his half form. Whatever was strong enough to take down Gaara couldn't be taken lightly. Naruto only flashed to Sakyoku Hill and saw someone being thrown out of the Senseikyuu. It was Rukia. Naruto was about to save her but was stopped by Jin and Kanem. Out of my way. I'm afraid we can't do that. You see Mr. Naruto, we have a mission and that mission won't allow us to let you through, said Jin with his usual creepy smile. Kanem stayed silent and Naruto didn't have time to talk to them. Naruto used his Zanpakuto to fight them as Rukia was falling. Rukia was then saved by Ichigo. Ichigo then threw her to a nearby Renji and she was taken to safety. Naruto was pissed. He brought Gaara into this and now because of that his friend got captured. He was not in a good mood and those two were in his way. He then unleashed a roar that the entire Soul Society heard and he blasted both Jin and Kanem. They then dodged and before they could get too far Naruto's arms extended and pulled them to the ground. Jin used his Zanpakuto to extend and tried, but that was in vain as Naruto grabbed the Zanpakuto and broke it. Kanem then used his Zanpakuto entry to skewer Naruto, but sadly it was in vain. Naruto created a barrier around him and it protected him from the blades. Before he could do anything they vanished. Damn it. Naruto shouted. At the captain's meeting, all the captains except for Aizen, Jin, and Kanem were there. They came to discuss the recent betrayal of the 3 captains and what they were going to do. Naruto was there as well. We are here to discuss the betrayal of Jin Ichimaru, Sasuke Aizen, and Kanem Tosen. And are here to discuss who will replace them. As you know, Aizen has somehow managed to capture the Jinchuriki, Gaara. Naruto will now speak for you now. Yamamoto said. Aizen is not a normal Shinigami. We Jinchuriki are not easily beaten and we all have a sense to tell the other Jinchuriki when one of us are in danger. This Aizen will become a major threat to not just the Soul Society but also to the living. He not only has Gaara but he also has the Hijoku. The Hijoku is some sort of object that holds incredible power. Keisuke Urahara was the one who made the Hijoku that Aizen has in possession now. To hide it, he made Rukia Kichiki a Gigai with the Hijoku inside to hide it forever inside her soul, but it didn't work. Aizen had somehow found it and extracted it from Rukia. This was all planned by him. Now because of that mistake everyone could be in danger. His true objective is unknown, but with the power of a Jinchuriki and the Hijoku, I would say he could do almost anything. What Naruto said had shocked all the captains in the room. They were all played like pieces of a chessboard. Yamamoto, the floor is yours. Since Naruto has won the wager, the Soul Society will no longer hunt down the Jinchuriki. The Jinchuriki will now be welcomed as guests into the Soul Society, and since we need 3 new captains, and Naruto Uzumaki has shown he has the qualification to become a captain, I would like Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox, to become the captain of the 3rd division. Will you accept? Naruto looked at the other captains in the room. Some of the captains looked happy for him, some looked interested, and others looked like they didn't care. I accept. Yamamoto nodded and gave Naruto a captain's Hiori. You will be shown to your barracks by Unohana. Meeting adjourned. Naruto was about to go with Unohana, but he wanted to something ever since he first arrived at the captain's meeting. He walked up to Captain Hitsugaya and the torture began. Naruto was standing in front of the Squad 3 barracks. It looked big and Naruto knew being a captain would be tough. He opened the giant doors and walked in. When he did he was met with glares from the entire squad. He walked up to the stage and made his announcement. Listen up. I'm your new captain and if you have a problem with it then come and try to take me down. If one of you manages to cut me then I'll relinquish my position as captain. Now anyone who has the guts then come and face me. After Naruto said that a group of Soul Reapers charged at him, Naruto didn't need much to take them down. His Zanpakuto was materialized in its Shikai form and in a flash they were down. Now Lieutenant, I want you to go to the 4th barracks and tell Unohana to bring some of her squad members here. They won't be moving for a while. Naruto said. Yes sir. Izuru said. The rest of you I want you to follow me outside. Naruto said and the rest of the squad then followed. They were in what looked like a training ground. There was trees and grass in the field and also a cool wind. Naruto went in and the rest of the squad followed. The rest of you didn't try to attack me. I must say that I'm not surprised. I now want to know which are the smart and which are the cowardly. It doesn't really matter though, to me it's all the same. Now let me ask you guys something, in a battle what's the most important thing on the field? Your orders, your comrades, or your own life. In battle you want to survive the fight, but let me ask you, why do you fight? Do you fight for power, for fame, or for the cheap thrill of it? Let me tell you a story of a soul reaper who told me the key to strength. Many years ago I came across a Shinigami who was fighting a rogue. He had prevailed, but before he died I saved his life. When I asked him why does he fight, he told me he had something to protect. It was his will to protect that made him so powerful and made him one of the soul reapers that I had come to respect as an equal. As soul reapers you protect the souls in the soul society, but of course you feel no attachment to them, that's why you are still weak. You're only protecting things that you have no care for. Protecting isn't only a source of power, it's the source of your drive. It pushes you past your limits and makes you go through hell and back to protect what you want to protect. Now I want you to tell me what you want to protect. Naruto had gotten various answers. Some were their family, some were their personal possessions, etc. Naruto had just got the information he needed. Now to check it with Yamamoto so there wouldn't be any misunderstandings. Naruto was standing in front of Yamamoto and told him his plan. What do you hope to get out of this? Nothing much. It'll weed out the unloyal and the weak-hearted. If they don't have the strength or will to protect the thing that is most precious to them, then I don't want them in my squad. Besides, I believe in people's actions over their words. Naruto said, I assume I have the cooperation of the other squads. You will. Now when will this test take place? In a week, if they notice it then they'll confront me about it, and if they can't, they weren't meant to carry the title Shinigami. I'm sure if the Spirit King could see them, it would agree no matter how beastly it is. Naruto said then left. Naruto was at the second squad's division and was talking to Soifun. Do I have your cooperation? Soifun nodded. I will send them to go. Good, here you go. Naruto said and handed her a picture of Yuruchi blowing a kiss and a piece of paper with a list of names and items. Soifun looked completely focused and red-faced at the picture. You just needed to know what people wanted and they'll do what you want. Naruto was now at the squad 4 barracks and was asking Anohana for her help. I will do it. My squad and I will be on standby until the end of test. Thanks Rennie, I'll take you out on a date after the test is over, alright. I'll be waiting Naruto. Naruto then left the barracks with a smile on his face. Naruto was now going to see his friends off. Naruto was now standing with Yukitake to see Ichigo and his friends go back to the living. Yukitake had just handed Ichigo a substitute Soul Reaper pass and said a few words. Now it was Naruto's turn. Naruto decided to go with a more mature look, so now he was an adult. Ichigo, your role as a Soul Reaper hasn't ended. We will meet again and I hope you'll never have to use that. Don't worry about Rukia, I got my ways and I'll make sure she's safe. The rest of you, watch over Ichigo. He'll need it if he wants to survive what might be coming. If you get the chance Ichigo, come back once in a while, I can't handle Zaraki's urge to battle. Naruto said. Ichigo didn't know what that was, but whatever it was Naruto didn't want him to use it. Ichigo gave Naruto a handshake goodbye and then went back to the human world. Naruto was now in his office and the one thing that every captain hated was standing right in front of him. The piles and piles of paperwork. Naruto didn't know why people even bother with it. A couple of signed papers weren't going to do much, so why bother? Regardless, he did them anyway. After what felt like hours he was done. Now for an announcement. Naruto had gathered all members from his squad. Now I declare that everyone except my lieutenant and I are on vacation for the rest of the week. Train, relax, do whatever, just get the hell out of here. And make sure to visit your families. If there's any problem please relay it to me. Naruto said, then the entire squad cheered. You cheer now but just wait. Naruto thought evilly. As the rest of the squad was packing, Izuru was wondering why he wasn't allowed on vacation. Excuse me captain, but why wasn't I allowed to go on vacation? There's a very simple reason. But first lieutenant, I have a question for you. Would you ever strike your captain even if I ruined your life? Izuru couldn't understand why his captain would ask him that. I don't know how to answer, sir. I expected as much. The reason you're not taking a vacation is simple. It's not a vacation. It's more of a test. I'm sure you heard the speech I made about protecting and what I said about the vacation. Anyway, if they do what I hope they do then they'll stay in the squad, but if they don't meet my expectations, then they are automatically discharged from the squad. I even have Yamamoto's permission to do so. If they don't take my advice, they were never meant to be Soul Reapers in the first place. Izuru looked at Naruto like he was mad. The test was very complicated. It tested their strength, observation, and courage. But then why was I left out? You're the lieutenant and from my reports I've read about you I can tell that you have the qualifications for this squad and I need your help to tie up the volunteers. What about the ones who didn't have anything they want to protect? It's discharge, plain and simple. Besides, the ones I discharge will be the lucky ones. They will return to Rukongai as ordinary souls, stripped of their Soul Reaper powers. I'm sure you know what happens when someone tries to quit from the Gate 13. I'm giving them a chance to test their mettle and if they fail, to go back to their lives as ordinary souls. Naruto said and walked away. Izuru couldn't tell if his captain was smart as Aizen or insane as Zaraki. Naruto was in his office taking a snooze when someone ran in. "Captain, my family has been kidnapped. There were no traces of anything. I was at the home for 3 days but they never came back. Please Captain, I need your help. Congrats. Now let me sleep. I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll send a hell butterfly to you once I found out what happened. For now relax, you're on vacation." Naruto said then went back to sleep. "Thank you Captain." After a while about 1/3 of the members from Squad 3 reported in saying things similar to what the first guy said and Naruto said the same thing to them. Eventually a week had passed and the hell butterflies were sent. Naruto had Izuru take the names of everyone who didn't show up and they were going to show up to Naruto after the test. Now the test was going to begin. Now all of you might be wondering where and what happened to your families and precious items while they're on the roof. Let's just say that if you don't rescue them in time, they'll be destroyed. Naruto said and switched into his demonic form. The members that showed up had a terrified look on their faces. Naruto was on all fours like a beast and the Hiori turned blood red like the rest of his body. "Captain, why are you doing this?" one member asked frightened. "For the fun of it," Naruto said and jumped from the stage to the members. "Let's see who has the guts to try and do something." Naruto was now at the roof with a huge sphere filled with souls and various items. Naruto waited and waited not leaving until someone showed up. It wasn't until 3 of his squad members showed that things got interesting. Naruto looked at them and saw that they were terrified. Their legs were shaking and they were sweating, but they drew their Zanpakutos and went to fight him. They had passed the test, but Naruto had to knock them out because the other Soul Reapers were watching. After Naruto knocked them unconscious he threw them into the sphere and waited for the next challenger, if there was one. After a while challengers showed and were taken down, but Naruto could sense that they were becoming more powerful. That's exactly what he wanted. These Soul Reapers had the will to fight, they made their choices even knowing a fight against him was suicide, and that made them qualified in Naruto's book. Naruto knocked them out and threw them in the sphere. And waited for any other Soul Reaper to try and stop him. After that performance the other Soul Reapers were freaking out. They had to save those people and if they couldn't they wouldn't know what would happen. Some of them remembered what Naruto said. Protecting isn't just power, it's the source of your drive. If you have something you want to protect then you'll go through hell and back to protect it. What Naruto said wasn't wrong. They all had things they wanted to protect and they were in that sphere. But fighting a Jinchuriki was the only way they could get through. It was a die to save or survive, but lose what you love situation, and nobody liked that. Naruto purposely did this to see if they had the courage and strength to confront him. "Let them go," screamed a girl from the Chosen. "And why should I? Please, those people have nothing to do with this. Take me instead. I won't resist, just please let them go," the girl said crying. Naruto looked at her, his with tail swing back and forth. This wasn't a hostage situation, but she had guts. She tried to give herself up to save the rest and even though no one would help her she came anyway. Maybe there's hope yet. Naruto stopped and continued to think of any possible plan she might have. If he left then someone might try and rescue them. Convincing act, but Naruto had seen it all before. "Who do you think you're trying to fool, girl? I've lived longer and learned nearly every trick in the book. I'm older than Yamamoto and yet you try to trick me? Learn your place," Naruto said and his hand extended and caught the girl. He knew other had to plan this and knew they were watching. He began to squeeze her body and her cries were heard throughout the compound. He was sure they heard her and waited to see if anyone would try and stop him. All the Soul Reapers that were chosen came out and drew their Zanpakutos. He knew it. They never meant to trade, they wanted her to distract him long enough to rescue the others, but they failed, so now their only other choice was to attack head-on. That was all of them and now Naruto only had one more thing to do. He put the girl in the sphere and asked them some final questions. "Do you have any regrets for what you just did?" All of them shook their head no and were prepared to go down fighting. "Prepare then." Naruto said and began to change because you passed. "Good job," Naruto told them in sage form. The Soul Reapers had dumbfounded looks on their faces. What do you mean we pass?" "I mean what I said. You passed my test. You are officially part of my Squad 3. You had the guts to stand up to me even though you know a fight against me would be suicide. You all have the courage, brains, and will to try something crazy like fight me. That's what I mean. For now relax. But first help them," Naruto said pointing at the sphere. "Oh, and tell the Soul Reapers in the bubble they passed too." Unohana then showed up to tend to the wounded with the rest of her squad. The test was a huge success and now Naruto had his squad. It was time Naruto discharged the members that weren't chosen. Naruto was standing in front of a bunch of tied up Soul Reapers. "Captain, what's the meaning of this?" asked one of the tied up. "I'm no longer your captain. From this day forth you are discharged from Squad 3 and the Gate 13. You will now lose your status as Soul Reapers and lose your Zanpakutos. Naruto had grown separate hand and each one of them plunged into the tied-up Soul Reapers. Naruto's hands then pulled out a bunch of white balls of Reishi and then crushed them. The power was dispersed and then the soul power was gone forever. It was now time to take care of the Zanpakutos. Naruto knew the Zanpakutos had souls of their own and had an idea. He put all the Zanpakutos in a pile and then a hand plunged out of Naruto's chest and held onto all the Zanpakutos. Naruto was standing in front of a bunch of different Zanpakuto spirits and they all looked confused. The place they were standing on was white Reishi and the sky was totally black. Naruto wasn't the only one there, his Zanpakuto Hiraition was there as well. Hiraition was a teenage girl with long blonde hair tied in 2 ponytails. She has whisker marks like Naruto, blue eyes and a flirty appearance. She had smoky white dress. Naruto explained his plan to remove their spirits from the Soul Reapers. Now after that you can choose to be regular souls in Rukongai or join the Gate 13 and fight hollows. But I will pull you out of the Soul Reapers, but after that it's your choice. After a while, Naruto managed to pull the Zanpakutos out and was about to leave when Hiraition stopped him. Naruto, you never visit. Don't you like me? Hiraition said crying. Hiraition, I'm sorry I never visit, but I've been busy. Naruto, I've told you a bunch of times. Call me Hira. Now I know a way for you to prove to me that you're sorry. Hira said suggestively. I don't know what you mean. Naruto said, hoping she would stop. You know what I mean, Naruto. Hira said and tried to give Naruto a kiss. It was then that Naruto disappeared. I was so close. I'll get him eventually. Hira said then returned to Naruto's mindscape with Kurama. Naruto returned back to human form and was now standing in front of Zanpakutos. If you want to join the Gate 13 then come to my office. Naruto said okay Squad 2, you can take them to Rukongai now. The ninjas appeared and took the Soul Reapers away. Naruto was now preparing to take Unohana on her date when suddenly Azurukira came in and gave him news. Sir, the Visard have been seen around Karakura town. Their objective seems to be the substitute Soul Reaper Ichigo Kurosaki. What shall we do, sir? Inform Yamamoto about this. Then wait for what he says. And under any circumstances are you to interrupt me tonight? Is that understood? Yes, Captain. Oh, and you have to go to the academy to introduce yourself with the students. When would you like to go, Captain? Put me down for next Tuesday. Naruto said and then Azura left. Naruto hadn't had a date with Unohana in a long time and now that they were together again he had his chance. This date was going to go well even if it killed him. Naruto was in the living world and was standing in front of a warehouse. Naruto had been sent to the living world along with Rukia, Renji, Ranjiku, Hitsugaya, Ikaku, and Yumichika. Naruto went on ahead after he heard about the Visards. There was someone there he missed and he was going to meet her. A long time ago he found a baby girl alone, so he took care of her and raised her. But one day Naruto felt it was dangerous for her to stay with him, so he left her at the Shinigami Academy. Of course no one knew who she was and her connection to him. He knew she would be upset and with her being a Visard, she was sure to give him hell. The moment he walked up, a blur of pink and blonde rammed him. Naruto knew who it was and took it at full force. It's nice to see you again, Hiori. Naruto grunted in pain. Don't give me that. You left me at the academy and then you disappear. I hate you. Hiori shouted. Naruto raised Hiori for centuries and hearing her say that broke his heart. People who were born in the Soul Society took longer to mature. A lot longer. I'm sorry Hiori, I did it for your own good. Don't give me that crap. You were my dad and dads don't abandon their kids, now go away. Hiori, that's why I came here. I want to make things right between us. And more importantly I missed my little girl. Hiori was silent and got off Naruto. Naruto could always tell what his daughter was thinking and now she was wondering if she should give him a chance. Fine, I'll give you a chance. Hiori said quietly. Thank you, princess. Don't call me that. Naruto had embraced his daughter in a hug, not knowing that someone was watching. Question, was he or she a friend or foe? Meanwhile with Ichigo. Ichigo had just finished killing a hollow and was about to leave when he sensed someone behind him and blocked the first strike. Is that his Zanpakuto? Who are you? You shouldn't be making such a ruckus, Ichigo Kurosaki. With spiritual pressure such as yours you can't lose composure so easily, otherwise you'll be found out too easily. Shinji said. Found out? By who? Ichigo demanded. You're asking me who? Idiot, do I have to explain every little detail to you? Can't you figure it out yourself? Ichigo had just pushed Shinji back. They're here. Barako, who are you? See, I told you so. It's all because you left your spiritual pressure unchecked like that. I'm asking you who you are. Shinji gave him a blank look. You're so impolite. Fine then. Here, take a look at this. Shinji said, then began to pull something down over his face. It was a hollow mask. Do you know what this is? The hollow's mask. Ichigo shouted, shocked. Correct. A hollow mask and a Zanpakuto. Do you get it? I'm a Soul Reaper with hollow powers, so let's be friends. I'm a Visard, just like you, Ichigo Kurosaki. Join us, Ichigo. You don't belong with them. Back with Naruto. Naruto had sensed something and was on his way to it. Hiori of course had to follow him. Naruto had made his way to the source and found a hollow that he killed himself. It was the Grand Fisher. What are you doing back? I know I killed you, so why aren't you back in hell? When the Grand Fisher turned its hideous head, it was filled with anger. I was waiting for Ichigo Kurosaki to turn into a Soul Reaper, but now that you're here, I'll kill you instead. The Grand Fisher said. It charged him but cut short by Naruto. Naruto wasn't going to kill it yet. He had to get information of how it came back from hell. One of Naruto's hand had become a demonic red claw, and Naruto was draining away the power the Grand Fisher had, while the other hand was pointing his tri-pronged kunai at the Grand Fisher's face. Naruto had absorbed something familiar when he absorbed the Grand Fisher's power. He absorbed a bit of Shukaku's power. Aizen must have drained Gaara of some of his power and implanted it into it. When Naruto had drained away all its power, he released his claw. Now, you're going to tell me everything or else you'd wish you stayed hell. Naruto threatened. The Grand Fisher had been forced to spill out everything he knew. He told Naruto about the Arankor experiments and the army Aizen was building. But before Naruto could get out any more info, the Grand Fisher was killed. The little red bullet-like beam had been aimed at the Grand Fisher to stop the leak of information. Naruto had only managed to get a small look at who it was before he disappeared. He had black hair, pale white skin, a hole at his neck, green eyes, and half a hollow mask. Naruto was about to follow, but he had to report what he found out to Yamamoto, and he couldn't just leave his daughter. He wanted to bring her with him, but he knew he couldn't. Listen Hiori, I wish there was some way I could make things work, but Naruto couldn't finish because he was just slapped by his daughter. Hiori had tears in her eyes and a sandal clenched in her right hand. You don't need to say anything. Just get out of here, Dad, Hiori said looking down, so Naruto couldn't see her tears. Naruto had embraced Hiori in a hug one last time and kissed her forehead then left. Naruto had felt regret at what he did, but with the Arankor army he couldn't just leave this be. Naruto was about to open a portal to the Soul Society when he was suddenly punched in the face. Hard. You're a traitor and because of you Gaara's been taken. I wonder what the old man would say if he saw what you did, said the figure in the shadow. Naruto had remembered the voice, but it wasn't one he heard in a long time. He was only trying to do what was best for us, but it is his fault that Gaara was taken, said a second voice that was hiding in the shadow. Naruto recognized that voice as well. What do you two want? Naruto asked. We only want what the others want and that's to rescue Gaara. You have been reckless Naruto and because of that Gaara was taken, but we are willing to help you. After all we Jinchuriki have to stick together. The second voice stepped out. He was short, had dust brown hair, a green shirt and shorts. Isn't that right Naruto? I'm here to help one of friends. Even though you were lucky enough to win that bet, it doesn't mean you're forgiven for going against the old man's wish. The first voice walked out of the shadow. She had short green hair, tan skin, orange eyes, a red hair clip, a purple skirt, and an orange shirt. I took a chance and made sure I would be the only one to pay in case I lost. I wanted us to have a better life and I succeeded. Now if you want to help Gaara then first we need a plan to rescue him. I'll meet you guys here tomorrow. Naruto said and wrote his house address on a piece of paper. We'll meet you there, you better not fail because if you do the world might end. Yugura said and Shunpo it somewhere else and Fu did the same. Naruto had then opened a portal to the Soul Society. Naruto had to rescue Gaara and with that an idea passed through his thoughts and Kurama heard it. What passed through Naruto's head wasn't a plan or an idea to save Gaara but something else entirely. It was something that made even Naruto feel afraid. It was something he had to do as well. He would explain it to the other Jinchuriki and if they agreed then they would do it. Naruto already knew who he would pick, the question was who would they pick. Do you really intend to do that? Kurama had asked. It's up to you. Do you want to follow through with my plan or do you want to do the other option? I need more time to decide, but you are right that that boy has shown potential. Kurama said. Naruto had sent a hell butterfly explaining his plan and about the Arankors. And then opened a portal to a place where no Jinchuriki ever wanted to go. He opened a portal to the Spirit King's palace. The Spirit King was a being that represented what was absolute in the dimensions. It was a being that never interfered with anything outside and the only people who have ever actually seen it would be the captains and Squad Zero. There was a reason only captains have met it. Naruto was stronger than the captains, but even he wouldn't stand a chance against it. Nobody could defeat it. Just by being in its presence could destroy any ordinary soul who wasn't as strong as a captain. Naruto was standing in front of the doors of the palace and there were two guards from Squad Zero guarding it. Halt. State your business Jinchuriki. Squad 3 Captain Naruto Uzumaki, I've come to speak with the Spirit King. The guards looked at each other and then looked at Naruto. Being in Squad 0 meant they were stronger than ordinary captains. Naruto was sure if he had to fight them he would win but be extremely injured. You can go in. The doors opened and Naruto went in. The palace was all white with a couple of paintings on the walls. He went straight in and was soon met with other members of Squad Zero. "The Spirit King has been expecting you. Go straight down the hallway and past those doors and you'll meet the Spirit King." Naruto did as he was told and went down the hallway to the Spirit King's chamber. Inside the chamber was completely dark. There was only a single thing in that room and it was an almost clear sign of death. It had 2 horns sticking out of its head, a cruel smile with sharp teeth, 4 floating balls of white flames behind it, a ghostly robe, and a blood-red tongue hanging out. "Why have you come to me?" As it said it, Naruto could feel his very soul being pressured. It was like his soul was beginning to fade, like it was being wiped clean of everything and starting over. Naruto had to hold his soul together with sheer will and was breathing heavy. "I have a favor to ask." The Spirit King was analyzing Naruto with soulless black eyes. "I will listen to your favor." Naruto was in a room in the royal palace. Being in the presence of the king was draining and Naruto had to recover. The recovery wouldn't take long and there was someone Naruto wanted to meet. He had already asked for her and now she was arriving to the room. "Are you Kiryu Hikifune?" "Yes, and I assume you're Hiyori's father." "Yeah, I just want to thank you for taking care of Hiori. It means more than you'll ever know." "No problem, I must say I was surprised when I heard about you. I never expected Hiyori's father to be one of the legendary 9. After she said that, she slapped Naruto hard across his face. "What was that for?" "Oh nothing, I just promised Hiyori that if I ever saw you, I'd give you a good smack. Figures Hiyori would have something like this." "Yeah, well, I guess I deserved that. I feel like a lousy father for what I did, but she couldn't stay with me anymore. I loved her too much to put her in that much trouble. Now for the first time in decades, I talk to her and then leave. I think she hates me even more now." Naruto said sadly. "Don't worry about it, she doesn't hate you. She talked about you a lot during her time with me. She really does love you. She probably has a hard time expressing it though. Just spend some time with her and she'll open up." "Thanks, I guess it's about time I go. Thanks for the advice." After that, Naruto left the palace and returned to the human world. It was now time for him to meet up with Yugura and Fu. Naruto went to his house and found them waiting there by his door. "We were waiting for a while, where were you?" Yugura questioned. "I was with the monster that ate the old man." "What? You had the audacity to do that? Do you remember what that thing did to the old man?" Fu questioned angrily. "Of course I remember. I can't forget no matter how much time passes. It was one of the most horrible things I've ever seen." Naruto said. Flashback. All 9 Jinchuriki were together with the old sage. They were still children, but they helped the old man. "Whew, that was close," said a kid. Naruto. "Yeah, I wonder if they're still chasing us," said a kid. Fu. They had just robbed a food store and they were chased. During that time they were known as devil children for the beast inside. They only had themselves and the old man until it showed up. The 9 had lived together ever since they became Jinchuriki with the sage. Since they were known as Jinchuriki, they never got fair treatment, so they had to steal food. At least Fu and Naruto did. Han and Rashi never did like to steal, so they would fish for food. The others would take care of the old sage. When they went back to the big old mansion that the sage had acquired for destroying the 10 tails, the villagers saw him as a hero, but they saw the Jinchuriki as demon incarnates. The villagers eventually turned their back on the sage and now the only one taking care of him were the Jinchuriki. They all loved him like a grandfather and they were returning home when they found it completely destroyed. The other Jinchuriki were in their beast forms and trying to destroy something. None of the Jinchuriki would destroy anything unless it was a big threat, and apparently this was. Naruto and Fu had dropped the food and joined the fight. They had entered their beast form and started trying to fight it. They were feeling the intense pressure of Spirit King. All of them were struggling to make their way to the Spirit King, but Squad Zero was doing everything in their power to stop them. While the Jinchuriki were struggling to reach the old man, the Spirit King was eating the sage's soul, so he could never reincarnate again. The Jinchuriki were watching helplessly as their master and grandfather figure was being eaten. The Spirit King's hand was inside the sage's body with the tongue drooling. The sage could only groan in pain as he was getting his soul pulled out. When the soul was completely pulled out, the sage's body went limp and the Spirit King devoured the soul. The sage was eaten completely and that was the end of the sage. The Spirit King had returned to the Spirit Palace along with Squad Zero. That was the first time any of them had felt true loss. After that they decided to split up. They all blamed themselves because they knew their special Rishi had been like a beacon to the Soul Reapers and so they had all went their own ways. The Jinchuriki all went into the house and they devised a plan to rescue Gaara. Naruto was in his house for some needed rest. He was always being told to do and he did them. That was most of his life. The Sage of Six Paths was said to be powerful and wise, but Naruto had other ideas about the sage. Years ago the sage had told Naruto about the beast called Juubi and his reasons for separating it. The Juubi was called the incarnate of pure evil that appeared in the ages that had been lost. People had feared it and its power until one day the sage had come. He had separated the beast into 9 entities, but before that the sage had talked to the beast. It told him about its origins, its power, and finally knowledge. The sage had become a hero and huge threat to the Soul King. The beast was a part of the Soul King that had been separated by unknown means. The beast had been meant to control Hueco Mundo, while the Spirit King controlled the Soul Society. But the beast denied its fate and escaped. The Soul King was about to go after it, but the sage got there first. It was then that the Spirit King felt threatened. The sage could separate half of the Spirit King's soul into 9 pieces and decided that a being that powerful shouldn't be alive. The Spirit King acted out of fear, but the sage had acted out of greed. Naruto could already tell the reason the sage had separated the monster. He separated it for glory, not out of kindness, and because of that it became his end. Although a feat like separating a being like the Juubi was incredible and he deserved recognition for it, he did it for the wrong reasons. Old man, you screwed all of us over. You were always acting as a loving grandfather and had 2 sons that nearly destroyed the world with their descendants. If it wasn't for the 9 of us, the world would have been destroyed. All the friends we made are now gone forever thanks to you. I wonder if Granny would be disappointed at what I become. She'd probably kick my ass, I miss her so much. At least I know what happened to the old perv, he reincarnated and became a captain. The old perv never changes even though he died and reincarnated. He's chasing after his vice captain. If you ask me, what you did wasn't wrong or right. You saved millions of people, but you ruined 9 lives. You gave us a gift but a curse. I don't even know what to think anymore. I finally think I understand why souls have to be reincarnated. If they lived forever, their souls would have become tortured like ours are. We experience things over and over again looking for something permanent to hold on to, but I guess nothing can stay forever. Being immortal doesn't make you a god, it just delays your death and makes you suffer along the way. I do have to thank you though. If it wasn't for you, I would never have had Renji and Hiori in my life, so in some ways you gave me a gift, so thanks for that. Naruto had finally fallen asleep after he said what he wanted to say. Now he was brought into his dreams and some of his darkest memories returned. Dream world. Naruto was in battle with some of the most talented people he ever met. His past enemies were in and out of his thoughts as if they were never there. It wasn't until he fought and heard a certain masked man that his view of things changed. I know what you are. You're one of the legendary Jinchuriki as heard of in legend. The demon children who were with the sage of 6 paths in his end. You've seen the world at its best and worst. You've seen things that could have shattered your very mind. You've seen loved ones go and die in battle, and for what? For someone else who thinks that his cause is worth the sacrifice of millions of people. There is no good or evil in the world, just foolish people who follow even more foolish leaders. Even now people have died and died again by foolish people and their desires. Those silly dreams about peace and happiness should have died a long time ago, but it never did. Those leaders lie about those dreams and use that lie to fuel their ambitions. That's why no matter what happens, this world can never be at peace. Now do you understand why the world can never be at peace? In a way, if it wasn't for those foolish people, I couldn't fuel my ambitions. Naruto could still hear the twisted words of that man. Naruto did see people he loved die gruesome deaths for pointless reasons. Especially one of his old lovers, Hinata. Hinata was always attracted to him and often stalked him when he changed into his child form. He found her actions cute and eventually she had somehow worked her way into his heart only to be killed by the people he was working for now. She was used to lure him in by none other than Aizen. Aizen had devised a plan to capture him and use him for the experiments. Coincidentally, it was around the same time that Aizen had framed Kisuke Urahara. Thanks to Aizen, both Naruto and Kisuke had a common enemy which allowed them to work together. Naruto would open the portal to allow the Visards to escape, while at the same time Kisuke helped him with plan a way to rescue Hinata's soul, but the plan had failed and he saw Hinata's death with his own eyes. Her last words still rattled him to this day. I don't hate you for this, Naruto. I still love you and that will never change. I just wished I could know more about you and been with you just a little longer. I love you forever, Naruto, goodbye. Those were her last words and regrets. After she had said those words, she had been executed by Zanpakuto. He still remembered the days he cried away. The Zanpakuto was supposed to be a place where you could repent for the sins you committed, but Hinata had been innocent and had been killed by basically him. He would never see her again, or that's what he thought. Naruto had woken from the long nightmare and had gone to the Soul Society. Naruto had went straight to Yamamoto for some personal time off. Yamamoto, we need to talk. You and I both know the power of rankers and how smart Aizen is. Right now with the power of Shukaku and the Hijoku he could do almost anything. I won't pretend that I know what his motives are, but I know one thing for sure. He's bringing back souls from hell with Gaara's power. You know as well as I do that if the hell gates open up, not even the Spirit King could stop it. We need to take action now. Even as we speak, Aizen is gathering an army of rankers and souls from hell. I'll try to get as many allies as I can, but someone will need to train the Soul Reapers here. I will see what I can do. Now go find the rest of the Jinchuriki and see if they'll help us. Naruto was now on his way to the Scotland where he knew he would find one of the Jinchuriki. Naruto had flashed there in under an hour to find Han. Even though Han was always trying to avoid people, he always had a thing for the water. Now Naruto was walking around the shores of Loch Ness to find a fisherman and lucky enough he did. So Han, how does it feel to be a famous monster? Naruto, I didn't expect to see you again for a long time. I hear you became a captain for the Soul Society. Out of all of us I didn't expect you to cave first after what happened to her. Han, opening old wounds will only hurt. I came here because I needed your help. The guy who captured Gaara has been doing experiments. They managed to find a way to turn hollows into rankers and they managed to open the gates hell. The worst beings to have ever lived are coming back and we need all the help we can get. Han had pulled back his fishing rod and turned to face Naruto. I don't know. After Gaara helped you, he got captured. There isn't much assurance that I might come back alive. Think about it. You'll know my answer if you see me in Hueco Mundo. Alright, now, do you know where I can find the others? Your location was obvious, but the others not so much. Have you ever heard of the Bermuda Triangle? Naruto was in cat form. He had already found almost all of them. It had been a week since Naruto had any contact with the Soul Society. He had met up with the other Jinchuriki and now he had to meet up with the last one. Yugito was always the one with a compassionate heart. She would look after everyone like an older sister. Now she just wanted to live her life peacefully doing good. She was working at a pet shelter where she could take care of animals and was coming toward cat Naruto. Oh come on Naruto, don't you remember how much trouble being a cat got you in Egypt? I guess you're here about Gaara. Yeah. I need your help. Right now there's a Soul Reaper named Sasuke-san. Right now, he's making an army of rankers and bringing back souls in hell. Right now the Soul Society doesn't stand a chance against them without our help. So you want me to help the people that have been hunting for most of our lives? Naruto, I can't and I can't believe you can after what they did to her. Yugito, old wounds are better left alone. If you keep picking at it all you end up with is a scar. Now leave it alone. I'm only asking you because I need all the help I can get. Now Yugito, I want you to do something for me. You do remember your old ninja days, right? Naruto had gotten everything in position. Aizen was going down hard. Naruto couldn't fight him, but he knew who could. Now it was time to go see Ichigo. Naruto was in the Kurosaki house and was met by Ichigo's mother. Who are you? I can't remember anything and I'm so confused. My little boy has grown up so fast and so have my daughters. Now tell me, who are you? I'm a friend. Naruto said then disappeared. He had reappeared into Ichigo's room but no Ichigo in sight. Naruto had to go find Hitsugaya and ask him. Naruto went to every place and eventually found Hitsugaya at a soccer field and talking with Karen. Hello Hitsugaya. I didn't know you liked Ichigo's sister. I wonder what Momo would say if I told her that. It's Captain Hitsugaya and I don't like Kurosaki's sister. Now why are you here? I got everything in place, but something doesn't feel right. What do you mean? It was too easy. Aizen obviously knows what we're planning and is allowing it. Obviously he doesn't see us as much of a threat and it seems like he wants the Jinchuriki to go to Hueco Mundo like he's pushing us there. There also wasn't a single hollow anywhere and I was moving around the world. It just doesn't seem right. I see, I'll contact the captain commander and tell him the news. Where will you be? I'll go see my daughter. You should think about who you love Hitsugaya. It'll be good for you. Naruto said then vanished. Naruto was at Sajoku Hill to pay his respects to Hinata. Hinata was always so gentle and sweet. She never wanted to hurt anyone, but she came from a noble family and those qualities were considered to be weakness. Naruto of course helped with her problems and they fell in love. Sadly though it was a time of war and she died young. In Naruto's immortal life he fell in love 3 times. The third person he fell in love with was Tear Harable. Harable was always cold to him, but he knew she cared about him. She was smart and preferred not to fight anybody. She always stood by her friends and was an amazing person. She never liked to be lied to, especially by those closest to her. One day Naruto had to get going and on the day after he left, she was murdered. Naruto never found out who killed her and never found her soul in the Soul Society. He however knew one thing. Aizen would do anything he could to manipulate him, that meant getting him. Aizen probably found her and is probably keeping her hostage or he brainwashed her into hating him. What Aizen had against him was unknown, but Naruto had a few hunches, but none of them could be proven. Whatever it was, Naruto was sure he would see Harable soon, but not under good circumstances. Naruto put the flowers in front of the Sajoku and left to go to Hueco Mundo. After Naruto left, a crack in the ground appeared and the flowers willowed. Naruto had appeared in the human world to give Rukia a mission. Naruto had appeared while wearing the school's uniform. He looked for Rukia and along the way he found one of Orihim's friends being harassed by one of the guys that Naruto beat up. Naruto was about to step in when Totsuki stepped in and showed skill. It reminded Naruto of the old days. It was then that Naruto had found a secret weapon. Totsuki showed a lot of ambition like the old days. Naruto had written a note and now walked past Totsuki. Naruto had put the note into Totsuki's hand and vanished in a blink of any eye after he was out of her sight. Totsuki had felt a little shock as she found a tiny note with a message for her. If you want to know what happened to Orihime, then go to the park after school. I'll be waiting. Totsuki was shocked but was going to go meet whoever wrote the note to help her friend. Naruto had appeared outside and found Rukia. Rukia, I have a mission to give you. What is it? Your mission is to prevent Ichigo from making contact with Aizen, and that means I don't want him to even look at Aizen. Until we figure out how Gaara was taken down, I don't want him to have any contact, you understand? Rukia nodded, but why? Ichigo is capable to take care of himself. He's strong, Rukia, but not that strong. Remember, he's only been a Soul Reaper for a couple of months. There's no doubt in my mind that Ichigo is capable, but until I figure everything out, Ichigo will not be allowed to even see Aizen. I'm betting all our lives on Ichigo's shoulders. That's why he can't fail. If he fails, we all could die, and to tell the truth, I don't like dying. If we don't know everything, then there's a chance that we could all die. And if you do what I say, then I'll tell you where your sister is. What do you mean? My sister is dead. No, she isn't. Her death was faked. If you want to know why, then follow my orders. Fine, Captain Naruto. I'll make sure Ichigo doesn't have any contact. After she said that, Naruto shunpoed to the park waiting for Totsuki to show up, and eventually she did. Naruto. You wrote that note. Yep, and I'm sure you know Orihime's missing. What happened to her? Naruto looked serious now. She's been kidnapped and I want you to listen to everything I say. Naruto then explained everything to Totsuki. From the Jinchuriki up to the part about going to war with people from hell and monsters. Well, do you still want to help Orihime? That was a lot to take in, but yes, I do want to help. Okay then. Now don't take this the wrong way, but I'm going to kill you. Naruto's hand became demonic and he grabbed Totsuki's soul from the inside and destroyed her soul chain. What did you do? I killed you. Naruto said as if it was nothing. Now I'll need you to hang on. Naruto grabbed Totsuki's body and held onto Totsuki's hand, then flashed to Urahara's shop. Kisuke. I need a favor. Ah, Naruto, what do you need? I need you to train her. And not as a Soul Reaper. I'm sure you have that scroll I gave you. Kisuke looked shocked and wide-eyed. You want to train her in the old arts? Yeah. She's shown strength and potential, and besides, she works better without a sword like another person we know. I want you to get Yugito and Yuruchi back here to train her. Once she knows the basics, give her the scroll. Wait, what do you mean? Totsuki asked, clearly confused. I'll leave you to explain it to her, Kisuke. Besides, I might not even be alive after what I'm about to do. Naruto said and disappeared. Naruto had appeared on the roof of his house thinking about his life and possibly having his last conversation with his best friend. Hey Kurama, I guess this is gonna be our last night. I just want to say it's been an honor being your Jinchuriki. Shut up. Kurama said while his tears were falling. You're too stubborn to die like that. Now you idiot, go to sleep. Love you too, buddy. Naruto said with a sad smile. 3 weeks later, Ichigo had been in a coma for most of the 3 weeks. Something had happened, but Ichigo couldn't remember a thing. Ichigo was laying in his bed with the worst headache he ever had. What happened? The transfer. Who said that? Kurama. I was Naruto's beast and his best friend. What happened to Naruto? I can't answer that. It was Naruto's last wish. Just let me honor it. It suddenly hit Ichigo like a pile of bricks. Naruto was dead. Naruto's body was in the cave and was now starting to decompose. His skin was becoming paler as his body was becoming colder. Naruto's soul was starting to become scattered. Since Naruto had been a Jinchuriki for a long time, his soul needed Kurama's. Since Ichigo had only been a Jinchuriki for a short while, it was still safe to remove. The longer he becomes a Jinchuriki, the more he will depend on Kurama. Naruto was staring at his body as his soul began to shake like the static on TV. Naruto wouldn't last long. He would only last a couple more days before he was gone forever. Now that Naruto was watching himself die, all the people he killed came back to him. Naruto had killed a lot of people and thought maybe this was punishment for all the people he killed. Naruto then returned to his body. If he was going to die, then he would at least die in his own body. He was about to return to his body when someone arrived into the cave. No way. Ichigo had gone to the Soul Society to deliver the news. The captains were in a meeting and Ichigo opened the door. Why are you here, Ichigo Kurosaki? I've come to deliver some news. Naruto is. Don't even bother. I already told them. All you need is to tell where. I never knew that Naruto was a coward. Even after all that planning, he just gave up. Fu said. Fu had said a lot of things, but making fun of Kurama's best friend wasn't a smart move. Ichigo then felt his body changing. He was being covered in demonic reishi and being taken over. I have stood by while listening to you insult my friend. Now you're making fun of him even in death. I won't stand for this, Fu. Kurama warned while the demon arm was around her neck. Fu had a grin, then turned into her demonic form as well. She then pulled Ichigo Kurama's hand off her. You may have been able to take me if your partner was Naruto, but with this newbie, it won't even take 5 minutes. Kurama knew this and knew her history with Naruto. They were best friends from childhood. Those two were the wild childs and so they were close. Fu eventually fell for Naruto but never expressed her feelings for him. She was a typical tsundere. She would badmouth him but never really hate him. Kurama then receded back and so did Fu. Now where is Naruto's body? He should be at the cave near the Sajoku Hill. Kurama said. Kurama then returned control to Ichigo. Ichigo was sweating and gasping for air. The captains had all shunpoed to the cave only to find a spot where Naruto's dried blood remained but no Naruto anywhere. Is this a joke? Kurama Fu shouted. He was here but someone else must have gotten to him. His soul was here as well. He had decided to spend his last moments to think about his life. The last I've seen of him was after the transfer. His soul was like static. He said he felt like he was being scattered and dispersed and told me to bring Ichigo to his house. And to not tell him of his last request. What was it? Anohana asked. I will not tell. It was his last request and I plan on honoring it. Kurama said and then stayed silent. Mayuri, what do you make of this? It seems like he only has a couple of days left before his soul will disperse and cease to exist. But he is alive. Mayuri reported. Soifin, I want you to search all around the world for him. Use whatever resource you need. Understood, Captain Commander. Mayuri, I want you and Anohana to find a way to stop the disperse. What about me? Ichigo asked. You will go to Hueco Mundo and rescue your friend and the other Jinchuriki. Take whoever you need. Now not a word of this escapes this cave. If Aizen gets word of this then he will move forward with his plan. Yamamoto said and shunpoed back to the 1st Division quarters with Naruto. Naruto was in a hidden place in the Soul Society. How did you get like this? Naruto asked. On the day of my execution, I was sucked into a secret chamber and came into contact with an Aranker. He was weak and tried to absorb me, but instead I absorbed him. I don't know how, but all I knew was that I wanted to see you again, but I was still too weak to break out of the chamber. I did what I could. I waited and eventually I gained enough power to break out. She said. But why now? Naruto said. I sensed you a couple of months ago, and that gave the strength I needed to break free. Now we can be together again, Naruto. Hinata said and ran to him. Hinata was wearing a white Aranker jacket showing some cleavage. Hinata was pretty much the same, except her mask was shaped like a butterfly hair clip. She enveloped Naruto in a passionate kiss. But Naruto pulled her back. What's wrong? Hinata, I love you and I love you too. So please. Hinata, I'm dying. I'm not going to make it and I don't want to hurt you. But that's why I'm here. I want to spend as much time with you as possible. Hinata, it's her, isn't it? That captain. Hinata, isn't it? Do you know what kept me sane during my time in that hole? It was you. All I ever wanted was you and I don't want to share you, Naruto. Hinata shouted. Hinata, please calm down. I love you and I mean that, but I love others as well. Why? Why can't you just be mine? I love you and only you, so please love only me. Hinata insisted. Naruto didn't even get to finish. Hinata had forcefully pushed him down and continued to kiss him. She had finally let him go but was still on top of him. Please, just for tonight. Be mine and only mine. And continued to kiss him. Hinata, please stop. You're not acting like yourself. Not like the Hinata I fell in love with. Hinata had stopped kissing him and started crying. I'm sorry, it's just, I love you so much. And the thought of sharing you was too much to handle. I think I'm okay now. Okay. Now Hinata, as much as I would like to spend my last moments under you, I got a friend that I need to rescue. Wait, let me help you. I want to be with you, Naruto, even if it's a little while longer. I'd like the help. Hinata. Yes. What are we going to do with my body? Naruto said, looking at his very sick-looking body. Meanwhile in an airport, a blonde-haired teenager came off an airplane. With distinctive scars and blonde hair. A member of Squad 2 saw him and reported it in. Captain, we found Naruto Uzumaki. I repeat, we found Naruto Uzumaki. Hinata had dropped off the body in front of the Squad 12 barracks and automatically left. In no time they found the body and put it in suspended animation. The body would stay frozen in time while they researched it for any way to save him. Meanwhile Naruto was wondering how long he would last. He couldn't return back to them and was hiding in the one place they would never look. In the inside. He couldn't meet up with anyone, not even Hiori. If Aizen found him then his plan would crumble. Even if Naruto was dead, it only had to make his plan go a different direction. If Aizen found out he was dead, then he wouldn't worry about him anymore and only go after the ones who were a threat to him. If Aizen did know about him then he would never expect him to give up Kurama, which would make him send the stronger ones against him while the others went to him and killed him. The third is his secret weapons. Itsuki was one of the few people who were learning the old ninja arts. Even without Naruto and Ichigo she wouldn't go down easy. Naruto had faith in her as much as he did with Ichigo. He even prepared a boost for her in case something happened. Naruto had a high chance of winning this fight, but one slip-up would cause a meltdown. The stakes were high and all life as we know it was on the line. This was a big game that Naruto couldn't afford to lose. Naruto knew Aizen had two big things against him. One was the Hejioku, and the second was Gaara. Now the game could go either way, the question now was who was going to make the first move. At the grave of Unohana, it was raining. The skies were dark and it was a sad day in the human world. Naruto was standing over the grave of Unohana. As he was staring at it, he finally became aware of a little boy with black hair and 6 whisker-like scars. Naruto didn't say anything, but he could feel the little boy staring at him. "Hey, do you want to hear a story?" The little boy nodded, not saying a word. Naruto began his story. "A long time ago I was on the verge of death. I had nothing to eat and nowhere to go. I had been called a monster for most of my life and thought I would never find happiness. Until I came across a small house." Flashback, Naruto was on the verge of death. He had open wounds and was bleeding fast. He could only walk a short distance before he collapsed in front of a small house. Kurama couldn't do anything about the wounds because Naruto had used up too much of his power and no longer had the energy to heal him. Naruto really thought that was how he was going to die. He had already lost consciousness and was bleeding to death. It wasn't until Unohana showed up that his life was saved. Naruto had woken up inside the shack and laying on the bed while she cleaned his wounds. He stayed quiet while watching her work. Unohana was a young woman with hair that went to her back. When she was finished she noticed that he was awake. "Hello, I'm Retsu Unohana. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Thank you for taking care of me and cleaning my wounds, how can I repay you?" After he said that a group of men stormed the shack. "By the orders of the emperor, Retsu Unohana shall be wed to the crowning prince." Unohana's eyes showed fear as they dragged her out. Naruto was about to go after her but was stopped by the guards. Naruto couldn't do anything yet because his wounds were still healing. As they took her away she looked at him. There were tears rolling down her eyes. It was as if being married to the prince was the worst thing to happen to her. Naruto never cared about the royal family, he just looked after himself. But he still had a debt he needed to repay and he was going to do just that. As they took her away Naruto could only watch. After a couple of days passed Naruto's wounds were healed and he was about to crash a wedding. People were gathering around for the wedding. And the palace was surrounded by guards and samurai. Sneaking in was easy thanks to Hiraishin. Naruto flashed into the palace and found Unohana's room. He flashed in there and found Unohana brushing her hair. When she turned to face the mirror she was shocked to find Naruto there. "How did you get here?" Naruto shook his shoulders. "That is something you'll find out later. Anyway, I'm here to repay you for saving my life. I want to know why you're being forced to marry the prince." "I am forced to do it for diplomatic reasons. The emperor wanted his son to marry a peasant to have better relations with the people so they don't overthrow him. The prince picked me and 9 other women and had already violated them before marriage. He then plans on doing the same thing to me soon." As she said this the prince had arrived. He was skinny, had buck teeth, black hair and a perverted gleam in his eyes. When he saw Naruto he narrowed his eyes. "Who are you and what are you doing in my fiance's room?" "I don't have to answer, a lowly prince." "Guards." Off with his head. The guards and samurai rushed into the room and drew their weapons. "Wait, please spare his life," she said running to the prince. As she said this the prince regained his perverted stare and grabbed to her. "I'll let him live if you submit to my every whim," he said lecherously. She won't. Because I challenged the prince to a duel. If he isn't willing to fight for himself, then there's no way he would fight for his country," Naruto said. The guards looked at each other then withdrew their weapons. The prince began to look nervous. "What are you doing, you fools? Code of honor. When challenged the prince shall fight and if he loses then he will be exiled from the royal family and forever live his life in shame, but if the challenger loses then he shall forfeit his life." "I'm surprised that the prince has never learned of this," Naruto said. The king then rushed into the room and heard the challenge. "You shall duel at noon for all to see." The prince gave Naruto a glare then left. The king had given Naruto a room and Naruto rested for the fight however, in the middle of the night someone came to his room while holding a knife covered in poison. It was now noon and the prince had an arrogant grin on his face. They were inside an arena with the stands packed with people. "Where is the challenger?" the king asked clearly annoyed. "Maybe he got scared and ran away, father. He must have heard about my master swordsmanship and run for the hills." It was then that Naruto appeared on the other side of the arena. "Sorry I'm late, your majesty, I had to take care of some trash." "Well, I hope it was worth it. You kept all these good people waiting. Now where is your sword?" "I will not use a sword. Instead I will use this," Naruto said showing him a tri-pronged kunai knife with a talisman tied. "Are you sure?" Naruto nodded, and then the king announced the start of the duel. "We are here to watch a fight of honor between my son and an unknown man. Duel start." After he said that, the prince charged Naruto with his sword, but Naruto dodged every swipe. "When I kill you, that woman shall become my slave and will succumb to me. I can't wait to see her face in agony as I take away her innocence," he said with a sick look on his face. Naruto then made his move. He pushed the prince back with his kunai. Then threw it in the air. "You who have invoked my anger have no right to live," Naruto said, and transformed into his deity form and threw his kunai knife to the sky. The sky had darkened and his Zanpakuto made a return trip. Naruto caught it in his hand and was now wielding a sword of thunder. "Why, you're the god Raijin," the prince said fearfully. Naruto didn't even bother to correct him. "You who have invaded the innocence of many and killed many shall now die by my sword," Naruto said, and was about to stab him Thor when the king had come to interrupt him. "OP, please, merciful god Raijin, spare my son. He has committed a great crime, but please I beg of you to spare him," the king had begged. "Your son had angered me without even bothering to learn my name. This shows his ignorance, and if he should be put to rule this land, then it shall become this country's downfall. I will however let him redeem himself." Naruto withdrew his sword. "The prince will now choose his fate. Die by my hand or leave in shame. You have 1 minute before I kill you." The prince was stricken with fear. In front of him was a god and he was looking down on him. "I choose to kill you." The prince had chosen the foolish choice and charged him. "You have chosen to die a dog's death," Naruto said, then in a clap of thunder the prince was dead. Naruto returned to his original form and went to the king. "May this show you what will happen when you abuse your power." Naruto then went to Anohana. "After that we fell in love, but I had to leave. Thanks for listening, and here this is a very important scroll," Naruto said. The little boy took the scroll and stared at Naruto with tears in his eyes. "May our paths cross one day, kid. Use what you learn from that scroll to survive and become a good person," Naruto said and vanished. Goodbye, Dad. In real time, Ichigo was with his friends inside the Urahara training ground. Ichigo had just got a seal put on his so hollows couldn't sense him. Totsuki had to stay behind for more training. As Kisuke was about to open a portal to Hueco Mundo when someone shocking came. I thought you were dead," Ichigo said. Naruto had arrived. "I'm not Naruto Uzumaki. I've been told I bear a striking resemblance to my ancestor, and judging by your expressions it must be true. It's nice to meet you, I'm Kai Uzumaki." Naruto breathing heavy as his soul was shaking like static. He had used up about half of Kurama's Reishi to enter Hueco Mundo, along with Hinata. If the others had followed his plan, then he was sure he would succeed. It took a moment for Naruto to stop the scattering, but he knew he hadn't completely stopped it. He had just landed just outside of Las Notches and was already tired, but he had to tread on. He needed Hinata to report it to the Soul Society. Since the captain's Hiori was a spirit item, he gave it to Hinata to show that she came from him. The plan now was to assassinate Aizen if possible, and if he couldn't, then take the Hijokura Gaara back, then escape. Since he was now an ordinary Soul Reaper, he had to rely on sense to find Gaara. It was very faint, but he could sense him in a nearby building. Naruto had flashed himself and Hinata into the area where they had found Gaara. Gaara was bleeding and was looking really weak. Just by looking at him, you would be wondering if he was even alive. Aizen had him chained against the wall and had been taking Shukaku's power when it had regenerated. Gaara was alive but barely. Shukaku was the only thing that was keeping Gaara alive. As Naruto was undoing his chain, someone walked in. Naruto had sensed it, and so did Hinata. They just barely broke the chains before he had walked into the room. Gaara was now in Hinata's hands and was unconscious. Naruto was clenching his kunai tight and was preparing for battle. "Naruto, we meet again." "What do you mean?" Naruto said with a serious voice. "You don't seem to remember me, do you? I guess it has been many years since we've seen each other, so I will remind you of who I am." "I am," Aizen said. As Aizen said those last silent words, both Naruto and Hinata's eyes widened in shock. Hinata had begun to hold Gaara's body tightly as she backed away in fear. Bankai. A huge burst of lightning had destroyed the building, and during that moment of blindness, Naruto opened a portal to the Soul Society and pushed Hinata into the portal. Even though Naruto now only had a small amount of Kurama's Reishi, he couldn't take any chances with him. His body was now starting to shake more violently, and he now held the black hilt of the blade of lightning. "So this explains how you captured Gaara. Your old ability must have manifested into his Zanpakuto. Naruto realized I should have killed you and tossed you down to hell myself," Naruto shouted. "You were too naive back then, and because of that, look at what happened. I promise you, it won't end like last time, brother. This time I'll make you suffer." After Aizen said that, the Espada showed up. Naruto was surrounded from all sides by 7 Arankers and Aizen. As he looked around, he spotted Tear Harrible with them. Naruto knew whatever he said wouldn't make much of a difference now. He clenched his teeth and held his tears back. He gripped his blade tight and entered a gruesome battle. In the Soul Society, Hinata had made it to the Soul Society with an unconscious Gaara in her arms. When she opened her eyes she was surrounded by soul reapers coming from all directions. Wait, I came here thanks to Naruto. Here's his Hiori to prove it. Hinata had said and took off the Hiori. She lifted it up for all to see and they all withdrew their Zanpakutos. You will need to come with me. Chijiro said. Hinata did as she was told and followed the lieutenant of the 1st Division and some Squad 4 Division members took Gaara's body to be healed. Hinata had been taken directly to Genryusai Yamamoto and was now going to discuss what had happened. Now tell me Hinata Hyuga, how did you survive? Hinata then explained how she had survived and who Aizen really was. After she was done Yamamoto sat there in silence thinking about what to do next. This is a turn for worst. He now has a captain imprisoned or possibly dead. With an army of rankers and souls from hell. All we can do now is hope we can win the battle. Aren't you going to rescue him? I am sorry, but we cannot spread our forces to rescue an ex-Jinchuriki, even if he was a captain. We need every last person for the war. Hinata stared at him in disbelief and ran as far as she could away. She was eventually stopped by a group of soul reapers. Is it true you know where Captain Naruto is? Said a girl soul reaper. Hinata nodded. Hinata could only wonder at who they were. Please tell us where he is. We need to rescue our captain. They had all shouted that. Naruto is in Las Noches. None of you will be able to go there. It might be best if you stay here and train for the upcoming war. Hinata said. Our captain has treated us like family and is an important person to us. Said the girl. Naruto had remembered a very similar saying long ago. Naruto had told her about his first mission and had then told her something very similar to that. It seems that even through the centuries he still remained the same. That had brought a smile to Hinata's face. If Naruto heard you say that, he would be proud. But he would also tell you that rescuing him should not be a priority. He would want you to work your hardest to win the war. Hinata said. At the underground training hall, Ichigo and his friends were standing there as they watched Naruto's descendant. I am here to find my great ancestor. What do you need Naruto for? It seems that your family has been fine without him. Rukia said. It may have been that way back then, but now our family is in a power struggle. There has been an ancient scroll that has been passed through the family. It was first given to Naruto's son by the very man himself. Eventually the techniques were passed through the family, but now war has broken out for who's going to be head of the family. It is my hope that if I can bring my ancestor back to the family and finally bring peace to the family. Kai said. They all stayed quiet wondering how to tell him about Naruto when someone appeared in front of them. If you want to find Captain Naruto then you should hurry. He might not have much time left. It was Naruto's Lieutenant Izuru Kira. Lieutenant Izuru, how do you know this? Rukia asked. My squad and I went to the ranker who delivered the news. It seems that in my captain's final goal was to rescue his fellow Jinchuriki and he had succeeded, but at the last minute Aizen had arrived. He said something that made my captain resort to use Bankai and push the ranker to the Soul Society. When I confronted the ranker, she only told me someone's name. Sasuke Uchiha. After he said that Kurama's eyes widened in shock. Sasuke Uchiha was supposed to be dead. I was hoping that the beast Kurama could shine some light on who Sasuke Uchiha is. Ichigo's body was then taken over again and was forced to go to beast form. Kurama was now in control. Sasuke Uchiha was someone who Naruto thought of as a brother and someone who needed to be destroyed. Kurama said and continued in the Forgotten Age, he was part of a famous clan like our young Kai here. The clan was one of the families that descended from the Sage of Six Paths. They were an arrogant people who believed themselves to be superior. One day however the entire family was wiped out by one of their own. The one who wiped them out was Sasuke Uchiha's brother Itachi Uchiha. Struck by the shock he lived a life of revenge and trained in the old arts. When he finally killed his brother, he learned the reason why they were murdered and his revenge streak continued. He and a few others waged war on the world. He even brought back souls from the dead and created his own army. The army created havoc and countless deaths. It was then that the Jinchuriki stepped in. Naruto went to Sasuke to take him down personally because he felt it was his responsibility. Naruto was always alone after they all separated and saw a little part of himself in Sasuke. Sasuke was a soul of rare caliber. He was able to go toe-to-toe with Naruto and myself. Naruto eventually gained the upper hand and was about to kill him, but let him live. Eventually Sasuke went into hiding and we never heard from him again. The war had ended and the old arts were banned and were completely erased from history. Naruto of course wrote down what he knew in 3 scroll and waited for the time when they would be needed again. If this man really is Sasuke Uchiha then he will want revenge and plans to make Naruto suffer. They all stood there shocked at what the giant 9-tailed beast had told them. Kurama had given back control to Ichigo. Izuru had returned to the Soul Society to further question Hinata. Now they were going to the Soul Society to rescue their friends. In Las Noches, Naruto was hung on the well by chains and had a collar on his neck to cancel his spiritual pressure and Reishi control. Naruto's eyes were lifeless and cold, but he was still alive. His mouth and body were stained with dry blood. He was alone with only his thoughts. The door suddenly creaked open and Tear Harrible walked into the room. Naruto remained silent as his lifeless eyes stared at her. Her cold blue-green eyes watched him in his pitiful state. The silence was then broken by Naruto. How did it get like this, Tear? Her cold eyes warmed up by a single degree of care. I don't know. Naruto gave her a smile, but there was no warmth behind it. Guess you're still angry at me, how about you tell me what happened? Maybe I can be of little use before I'm completely destroyed. Tear Harrible didn't say anything, she just left without saying a word. In Las Noches, Naruto was being taken to Aizen in chains. Naruto had no idea how long he had been in Las Noches. It might have been a few days or an eternity, to Naruto it was all the same. When he was brought to Aizen, he could only look up as Aizen had a grin on his face. What do you want? I had an idea about how to make you suffer. Aizen said and continued, what better way to do it than to make you kill your own friends with your own hands. I won't do it. Naruto shouted in anger. I'm sure you'll try to fight it, but you will succumb to me eventually. Aizen said as he started to pull the sheath of his sword. I know more than you think, Aizen, much more. Naruto said mysteriously. Naruto knew something and what he knew was danger to Aizen. Aizen's grin turned into a look of alert. He then fully drew his Zanpakuto and pointed the blade at Naruto's forehead. In a single instant Naruto's body froze and shook like static. Aizen had one of his hell solders bring him a needle and then he injected it into Naruto's body. The shaking stopped, but Naruto still remained frozen. Naruto's inner world. Naruto was in his own world. His inner world was like the hidden village of the leaf from long ago, but now something was happening. It was being taken over. A giant white substance was covering everything in his world. He finally found Hiraition and she was running. She eventually found him and they were both running. Hira, what's going on? Naruto shouted while running. I'm supposed to ask that. That whatever it is, appeared and started to envelope everything. And when I was having my beauty sleep too. Hira complained. They were running from it, but they were running out of room. It seemed like it was growing and taking over everything. Do you feel it? Naruto asked. Hira nodded her head. They could both feel themselves grow weaker as the thing grew. Naruto had been taught to hit weak points, but the question was, where is the weak point of a giant white blob? On the outside, Naruto's body was growing a white mask that was covering his face. As it began to fully cover Naruto's face, the ground under him began to shake and crack from the spiritual pressure that was being caused by Naruto. Naruto's body began to turn. He was being completely covered by demonic Reishi like his demonic form, but was not as feral. The hollow substance and the Shukaku Reishi had began to bond and were taking over Naruto's body. Soon Naruto wouldn't have any control of himself. He would be forced to follow Aizen's every command. Out of the ground came white bones that attached themselves to Naruto. The bones around his arms began to sharpen like blades, his mask was becoming more defined, the bones around his body had began to shape themselves and then attach themselves to Naruto's demonic skin. When all the bones were completely attached, the demonic Reishi went to the bones and the bones absorbed the Reishi. All that needed to be completed was the mask. The hollow mask was near completion, but at the last minute Naruto regained control. He whispered out his last words before being completely taken over as a raspy voice. I know, Aizen, I know the truth. I know the mask had finished and Naruto was gone. Aizen's look of alert had come back. He gritted his teeth as he put his Zanpakuto back in its sheath. Naruto had now become his slave and Aizen intended to use all of that to his advantage. As Aizen walked away, Naruto's finger moved by itself then stopped. The rest of his body stayed frozen. Come. Aizen had said and Naruto followed. They had arrived just outside of Las Noches but couldn't sense anything. All they knew was their friends were in there and they were going in. As they were about to step inside, Kai had stopped them. You mustn't act rash. I assume inside the area is my ancestor and your friend, right? If you need to find them, then I will help assist you. Kai closed his eyes and his eyebrows scrunched in concentration. He did a series of hand signs and 100 Kais popped out of nowhere. They were all amazed, especially Tatsuki. The most she could manage was 20 and that would only work if she used all of her energy. They were all surprised by the Kais that popped up but they didn't ask. The clones all went inside Las Noches and waited to see what would happen. Hey, what's supposed to happen? Renji asked. Rukia smacked him upside the head then answered. This is one of the lost arts techniques. The old arts were originally a fighting style that worked with nature with 5 elements. Fire, water, wind, lightning, and earth. Of course the techniques had developed so much that techniques had been developed far that they didn't need elements. Granted they were stronger but were unneeded. It's also been said that some souls were strong enough to be born with more than one and could actually combine elements together. Those who have been called legends, but since the Lost Age has been completely wiped out from history, the souls who learned the techniques were never found. The only possible people to know what happened to them would be the Jinchuriki and would be the man we know as Sasuke-san or as Naruto knew Sasuke-cha. Rukia explained. The lost age was 1,000 years that were completely terminated from history. It was a time that was wiped from even Genocide Yamamoto and all of Squad Zero's memory by none other than the Soul King. The only beings that knew what happened during that time would be Naruto or the other Jinchuriki, exclude Ichigo. Kai had a concentrated look on his face. Then his eyes snapped open. I have found your friend, but my ancestor is nowhere to be found. It seems Aizen has taken him to another location. They now knew where Orihime was, but Naruto was a mystery. They then separated into two groups. One to take Orihime back to the outside while the other finds Naruto. Ichigo was with Uryu and Rukia. The second group was Kai, Tatsuki Chad, and Renji. The second group would look for Naruto, while the first would bring Orihime to the Soul Society to get her to Squad 4 to get checked up. When they were finished they would meet up with the second group to search for Naruto. Okay, so where's Orihime? She's inside that building, on the 3rd floor. Kai said, pointing at the building. The clones had been dispersed and Kai had a basic layout of Las Notches and now he needed to find out where Naruto is. The groups had gone their separate ways and were on their way to rescue their friends. Naruto's eyes were darkened and didn't show anything behind them. There was only hollow emptiness. Whatever was left was buried deep inside. Naruto was now a prisoner inside his own mind and his jailer was himself. Aizen had brought him in for a meeting with the Espada and now it was starting. I welcome you brothers and sisters to the meeting. I am here to welcome the newest member to our family. Naruto Uzumaki. After Aizen said that, Naruto walked out of the shadows. Naruto was dressed with a white Aranker jacket, his mask above his nose, leaving only his mouth and eyes visible. His eyes had lost all the mirth it once had, now he was just a slave. Now Naruto, tell me about the lost age. As he said that, no one noticed Naruto's hand clenching on its own. In the inner world, the white blob had created a form of its own. It now looked identical to Naruto, but its eyes were pure black and it was completely white. It had walked inside of Naruto's inner world and was now standing in front of a bound Naruto and Hiraition. Tell me about the old age. The white Naruto said. The real Naruto looked up at the copy of himself. I got nothing to say to you. The white Naruto looked at his other self with the same emptiness in his eyes. You will tell me so I can tell Master Aizen. Why do you follow him? Why not do what you want? I follow him because it is who I am. I have no will of my own while you have your own. I was created to follow orders and that is what I will do. Haven't you ever wanted to do anything for yourself? I think that you should do what you think is best, after all we think so. After Naruto said that, 3 figures appeared. The first was a child Naruto in his old orange jumpsuit with a huge smile. The second was an adult Naruto. He wore a flame robe and his old Konohagakure headband on his forehead. He had an essence of maturity in him with his arms crossed and gave him a nod of respect. The last figure was an elderly Naruto. He wore a white and red robe with a kanji for fire. He had wrinkles and looked as if he's seen everything but still managed to look at the world in a bright light. He gave the white Naruto a bow and stepped back with the others. Who are they? The white Naruto asked, clearly confused. They are my past and future. It's nice to once in a while look back, but it's also good to look at the future. Since you are me, I think you should learn about my life, said Naruto. All 3 of Naruto stepped up and put their hands on his mask. They closed their eyes and transferred everything to him, from the past to the right then and there in the present. You can choose what you want to do, but ask yourself first, do you want to do what Aizen tells you to, or do you want to do what you want to? Naruto said. In the outside world, someone had taken control of the body, but the question was who? The mask had now hung over his eyes. He had started to lift it up his head to reveal the same dark eyes, but they were filled with confusion and thought. Well, tell me about the lost age. Aizen said. Naruto was staring at Aizen with a calculating stare. Naruto now knew everything about the lost age, the sage, and who Aizen is and was. The Asadas were staring at Naruto in wonder. When they captured Naruto, they had become greatly injured and some of them even lost parts of their bodies. Most of them were forced to go to their resurrection forms to beat and restrain him. Of course Aizen had already anticipated that and made Orihime heal them. Now they were waiting to see the fruits of their labor. Naruto was about to open his mouth when an explosion happened. The wall had been completely destroyed and on the other side were Kai, Tatsuki Chad and Renji. However, that broken wall gave Naruto a plan and a hell of a way to piss off Aizen. As they were about to rescue Naruto, they were stopped by the Espada and Naruto himself. They became bound and chained, then were taken to the dungeon. We will continue this another time. You are all dismissed, Aizen said, frustrated. As they were being taken away, Naruto would be visiting his other self now. Inner world. The Naruto we knew was now free to roam his inner world while his other self was observing Aizen. I didn't expect you to come back so soon. Naruto yawned. So what do you need? Naruto said, waking up from his nap. I will need advice. I have seen everything you have seen and have learned so much. But what should I do? You've seen my life and learned everything I know, so why are you asking me? You know me the best, so you should already know my answer. By the way, we need to give you a name. Calling you by my name would be too confusing. I'll call you Menma. Naruto decided. Menma knew the true meaning of that name. It represented what would happen if power went awry. It suited Menma well. Before you go, do what I would do and piss Aizen off. Naruto said, grinning. Menma nodded and vanished from inner world. Las Noches. Menma had gone to the prison where Kai and the others were being held and walked up to Kai. Naruto knew everyone but Kai, so Menma would start there. Who are you? I am your descendant, ancestor. Kai said immediately. It was then that Menma had a short flashback to the little boy, and Naruto felt it as well. It seems he took my advice. Now how many of my descendants are there? Naruto thought. If they all had his blood, then they were bound to get his mischief as well. Oh god, how is the world still in one piece? Naruto wondered. My family has told me that I bear a striking resemblance to you, and I strive to become just like you. Now as I stand in front of you, I only feel disappointment. Kai said, obviously disappointed. Let me take over for a few minutes. Naruto thought to Menma. Naruto was now in control and the color returned back into his eyes. You should learn to respect your elders, Kai. After all, if it wasn't for me, you would never have been born. Kai looked up at his ancestor. There was something different about him, but he didn't know what. It was as if he was filled with life again. I promise I'll get you and the others out of here. Now tell me, who else is here? I didn't know if he could trust him yet. How do I know if I can trust you? You don't. Naruto said with a smile. That comment was similar to the ones that his family might have said. Kai broke out into a grin and agreed to tell Naruto everything. Okay, when I give the signal, you'll create an army and use them to create a distraction, then me and Ichigo will do the transfer. After that, I'll open a portal to the Soul Society. What will happen after that and what is the signal? I pay a visit to my family. And don't worry, you'll know the signal when you see it. Naruto wasn't going to switch back with Menma, at least not until he tried to win over Tear. Naruto was now standing in front of Harible's room. Something was strange. Haribel had almost always been cold to him, but this time he could sense that something off. At first Naruto thought it was because she was a hollow, but now Naruto knew it was because of something else, and he intended to find out what. He entered the room to find Haribel staring outside of her window with a sad gaze. What's wrong, Tear? Tear had turned her head to see Naruto there. She didn't say anything, she just looked outside her window again. As Naruto was standing there, he could sense her sadness. Naruto, do you know how sharks are born? Naruto didn't understand the question, so he shook his head no. They're born with the death of their mother. Tear, why are you telling me this? Naruto asked, clearly not liking where this was going. Naruto, when you left, I found out I was pregnant. I was more happy than I ever been, but then something happened. There was an incident and our child died while I lived. Our child had died before it even had its first breath, but I was allowed to live. Why? Why was I allowed to live while our child died? He was ours, so what right does anyone, God or not, have to take him away? Tear shouted angrily. Naruto had pulled her into a hug as she cried out her anger and sadness. This now explained how she became a hollow. She joined Aizen to find the god that took away their child and kill him. She was being manipulated by Aizen to help his cause, and now that Naruto had come back to her life, she saw this as a greater sign to get revenge. Tear, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I love you with my entire being and I wish for your happiness, but you can't trust Aizen. Tear's eyes were wide with disbelief and betrayal. He promised me that he would bring us back our child. And what guarantee do you get that he will actually keep his word? Do you actually believe he will? Then what can I believe in? What can I do to bring our baby back to us? Tear shouted. Tear was dead straight on bringing their dead child back to them, and she would go through any length to have their child back in her arms. Naruto had his answer for her. Believe in me. Believe that I'll find a way to have our child brought back to us. It was a promise, and a promise that Naruto would die trying to achieve. Tear stayed still, then she slumped into Naruto's arms. It was then that he realized that she fell asleep. She put her faith in the man she loved and he wouldn't disappoint her. He laid her down on her bed, then left the room in a flash. As Haribel was sleeping, she was dreaming of Naruto and her child together and with her. That was Haribel's wish in life. Naruto was in his mind while his soul body was resting. Naruto was thinking about all the things he had gone through. Naruto had done things that probably challenged the laws of science. Naruto had traveled through time, gone to different dimensions, and been to hell and back. He had seen empires rise and fall, the mightiest men brought to their knees, and the proudest women crumble. Naruto knew one thing that everybody would eventually learn. Life was cruel. Naruto had already found a way to show Tear her and his child. But there was no way he could bring their child back to her arms, but he could show her their child, just not now. There was too much going on, and Tear was a little unstable from seeing him again. In Oriham's room, Ichigo was just outside of her room while the others were staying guard. He was about to open the door when he heard talking. Your friends have come to save you, but that will not change anything. I will not forgive you if you hurt them. Ulquiorra stood there with the same look on his face. I do not care if you forgive me. I will do as I've been assigned to do. If your allies want to rescue you, they'll have to go through me. Ichigo stood outside listening to every word when a small green blast destroyed the door. It was just a few centimeters from Ichigo's face, and Ichigo pulled out Zangetsu expecting a battle. The door had been destroyed and on the other side was Orihime and Ulquiorra. Ichigo Kurosaki, you will be defeated by my hands. Ulquiorra said and the fight began. Ichigo was clenching Zangetsu tightly and charged. For Ichigo fighting was tough. Ever since Kurama became a part of Ichigo 2 days ago, Ichigo had had trouble fighting. Inside he was fighting for control. Kurama had tried to help by influencing Ichigo's body, but Ichigo had his own battle style. So they conflicted for control. That was a major drawback for Ichigo. If Ichigo wanted to control Kurama's power, then he would have to master synchronizing with him. Meanwhile with Naruto had been called by Aizen's, and Naruto already switched with Menma. Ah Naruto, welcome. Come and join me for a game, will you? In front of Naruto Menma was a chessboard and the black pieces were facing him. You could learn a lot about a person's way of thinking by playing this game. So tell me, how are you enjoying your stay? Aizen said. It has been satisfying. Menma replied and moved a piece. I see, and how have the others been treating you? Aizen moving a piece to block him. I have not had the time to talk to the others. Menma said without emotion. The game continued back and forth and until Aizen made one move that would have guaranteed him a victory. It seems that this is my victory. What will you do now? Naruto moved his piece and that automatically put the queen that Aizen had under his control into a standstill. His pieces were gone and wherever he moved Naruto had a way to counter. Aizen had lost his queen and that gave Naruto the ability to take out the king. It seems that victory has come to me. As Menma stood up and walked away, a little spark of blue appeared in Naruto's eyes, but Aizen didn't notice. Naruto now knew Aizen's mindset, which would help him in the long run. It was almost time for everything to be initiated. Naruto was going back into his chamber when a beam of green broke through the wall, leaving him confused. When the smoke cleared, Ichigo was there and he found him in Bankai form. When Ichigo saw him, he disappeared in a burst of speed going back to fight. A small little girl with green hair, a red mark running across her nose, and a cracked rancor mask walked into the room. Hey Naruto, what's that? She asked pointing at Ichigo. Naruto found her in his few days inside Hueco Mundo. She looked like she was about to get eaten, but Naruto rescued her and she would sometimes disappear and reappear from time to time. Hey Nell, I need you to do me a favor. What is it Naruto? You see that guy right there? Naruto said pointing at Ichigo. Nell shook her head up and down really fast. He's a good person, but he's in trouble. Could you help and cheer him on if he needs it? Yep, Nell will cheer for Ichigo. Nell promises. That's a good girl. Be safe and hide, alright, everyone might be trying to find you so it's best to hide. Nell nodded her head furiously. Naruto walked away and Nell walked all the way to Ichigo. Naruto was now going to see his descendant. In the dungeon, Kai was hanging there waiting his ancestor. Kai, it's almost time to go. Get everyone out and I'll take care of everything else. Naruto said. And take care of what, Naruto? Out of nowhere Aizen appeared. Aizen, I guess there's not much of a need to hide it now. Naruto said without turning around. Naruto threw Kai a small piece of paper that was folded into a small square. So when did you figure it out? During that chess match. The hollow was supposed to always submit to me, but in that game it, or should I say, you won. I see, then I guess there's no need to hold back. Now. Naruto shouted. The ceiling got destroyed and Naruto broke Kai out. Now go break the others out. Open that paper in an emergency. Now go. I broke out and made over 100 shadow clones to flood the room. Up in the ceiling was Yugura in his beast form and he was smashing everything. I see you brought company. How you planned all this in such a short time is beyond me. But you will not be coming out of this alive. Aizen said, then drew his Zanpakuto. Outside something was rising out of the sand. It was white with a few black markings, it looked almost exactly like Shukaku, and when it saw Yugura it jumped and started going after him. Yugura was holding the white Shukaku back while still destroying Las Notches, and thanks to the giant Shukaku, it wasn't that difficult. Meanwhile with Ichigo was just barely holding his own against Ulquiorra. They both stopped however when they saw the destruction of Las Notches happening. It seems that Las Notches is being invaded. We will continue this another time, Ichigo Kurosaki. Ulquiorra said and fled back to try and stop Yugura. Ichigo was about to try and go save Orihime when another Espada showed up. Grimjoji Jurjakas showed up along with Orihime and was about to finish what Ulquiorra left behind. We meet again Shinigami. This time I don't want any excuses. Women, heal him. Ichigo, I'm sorry you went through all this for me. I never wanted any of this to happen. Orihime said tearfully as she healed his wounds. It was about around the same time that Nell showed up. Ichigo, Nell has come to help. Nell said. Who are you? I'm Nell. Naruto sent me here to help you. Nell said, then walked over and started to drool on Ichigo. What are you doing? Ichigo shouted. Nell is helping. Ichigo's wounds were healing faster now. I don't want any excuses for when you lose Shinigami. Grimjo said. Just then another Espade showed up. Noitrakilga. You should have killed him when you had a chance. Now because of your worthless sense of honor. He's at full strength. It won't matter anyway, he'll still die. Noitra then charged a still healing Ichigo but was stopped. The one who stopped him had a mask and a fishing pole. Now. This isn't a fair fight. Attacking someone who is injured. How about you fight me instead? Han said, and his fishing pole changed into his Zanpakuto. I don't give a shit. If I kill 1,000 nobodies, who's gonna say that I'm the strongest? There's no point in taking a nobody's life. But you're a Jinchuriki, which means when I kill you, there will be no doubt. He again charged with his giant blade, hoping to slice Han, and soon enough a battle broke out. Almost all the Espada were cornered by a Jinchuriki, except for Tear Harrible. All the Jinchuriki were fighting their battles along with the help of the others. Their only goal was to fight, and that was just what they were going to do. Kai had been founded by Tear Harrible, who was about to fight until he explained the situation. Now it was basically a giant battle. B was fighting Yami, and both of them were in their most powerful state. Yami was a giant monster, and B was taking him on, and needless to say Las Notches was destroyed, either because of their own hollows who couldn't resist the tempting power the Jinchuriki released, or because of the Jinchuriki themselves. Naruto had his eyes closed when he was fighting Aizen because he already knew what Aizen's Zanpakuto could do. It controlled everything much like the Sharingan did. You know you don't fight nearly as well as your father did, Aizen. It's a shame that you will never be able to see him. Aizen soon became infuriated. You don't know anything. On the contrary, Aizen, I know what your aim is, and doing it will not do anything. Your aim is to find the real Sasuke Uchiha. Too bad for you don't know where he is. I on the other hand do know. You were hoping with your father's help that you could accomplish the dream he tried to help achieve, but the only way you could do that was to kill the Spirit King. Naruto revealed he knew Aizen's plan, and in that moment he was stabbed through the gut, and in one last second, Naruto looked up at Aizen and smiled before poofing in a cloud of smoke. The Naruto Aizen was fighting was a shadow clone all this time, and he didn't even realize. The question now was, where was the real Naruto? In one of the Uzumaki clan main house. In a lone room there was a 9-year-old girl with long blonde hair, and she was seeing a war beyond imagination. She was wide awake with her eyes purple and in some sort of shape. She had a vision about 2 armies. On one army, there were hollows, people in chains, and 3 soul reapers. On the other side there were people she knew like her cousin Kai, the rest of the Uzumaki houses, soul reapers, and another group of people all wearing different symbols on their headbands. Then there were 9 others who looked completely different from the others. They were all glowing and looked like they were made of energy. The one that caught her attention was the one that looked like Kai. The resemblance was uncanny. It was then that she realized it was him. The one that started their family, Naruto Uzumaki. Her vision ended and she was left in fright. It was then that her father walked in. He always knew when something was off and her vision definitely qualified. What did you see? Her father asked worried. I saw our great ancestor Naruto Uzumaki. In Las Notches, a battle was going on and confusion was enveloping. All the Jinchuriki were waiting for a signal of retreat. They could have won the battle, but Aizen was gonna have endless forces helping him, and even the greatest power could be worn down with time, and they didn't have time to waste. Naruto was nowhere in sight, and Kai was running away from Aizen. Meanwhile with Aizen, he was being distracted by over 100 Naruto clones. Almost all of the Espada were fighting Jinchuriki. The only ones that weren't was Harrible and Nell. Harrible was searching for Naruto while Nell was with Ichigo. All the Jinchuriki were keeping their ground except for Gaara, who was still in the 4th barracks. The buildings around Las Notches were crumbling by the presence of power alone. Aizen was being distracted by the seemingly endless Naruto clones. Kai was running with that paper in his pocket and Tear with him. With everything in chaos, it was hard to find anybody. Kai had sent out clones as well, but finding them was hard. They were on edge and hiding from everybody so they wouldn't have gotten noticed. Tear was on guard because Kai was her only way to find her love. Naruto was still nowhere to be seen, and things were crazy. Ichigo was healing while Han was dealing with the Espada. Ichigo was turning pale and fast. His injuries may be recovering, but something was going on. Ugh. Ichigo was grabbing his chest in pain. His heart started to pump faster, his vision started to blur. His hollow mask soon began to form along with 6 rib-like bones forming around his chest. There was a wicked laugh in Ichigo's head as it soon began to take control. Kurama could not do anything to stop it as he was being enveloped inside Ichigo. A red orb started to appear out of his chest. Ichigo was soon overwhelmed with demonic Reishi, and soon enough he was enveloped. Ichigo? Nell said scared. Ruo? Ichigo roared. Ichigo was on all fours, and his Zanpakuto seemed to just become a part of him. His mind was slowly becoming more loose and he was losing control of himself while his hollow side started to gain control. Well, that bastard's becoming a monster. Noitra said gleefully, completely ignoring Han. An overwhelming amount of spiritual pressure was being emitted from Ichigo as his soul was becoming more dependent on Kurama's power. Along with the power Naruto gave Ichigo soon began to feed Ichigo's hollow form and giving it more power. And the time window of removing Kurama from Ichigo was getting smaller. With Kai, I was with Tear Harrible when they were soon caught up with her Frachian. Why are you here? Better question is, what are you doing with him? One of the masks shouted. What I'm doing has nothing to do with you all, return from where you all were. Harrible ordered. We can't do that and we don't want to fight you, but we will if we have to. They all soon went into their resurrection form and Kai had begun to grow worried. Tear soon entered hers as well and was prepared to fight to the end. Truly a mother's love is a dangerous tool. Even with Tear, Kai wasn't sure if they could win and he couldn't form any more shadow clones to fight them when he used most of his chakra to distract Aizen. Then Kai had remembered the paper. Naruto said to only use it when he needed it. Would his great ancestor approve of a situation like this? Ah, forget it. Pair then opened up that piece of paper and out came 100 of Naruto's shadow cloned, but something was different. They were all wearing red robes and their eyes were different. They were yellow with sideways slits. I see, so this is the emergency you used it for, fine. So Tear, what should I do with them? Knock them out but don't hurt them. Kinda hard to do but alright. The leading Naruto said. All the clones soon split up into 3 groups, leaving only the leader to stand and watch. In a split second Tear Harrible's subordinates were knocked unconscious. All the clones then ran into a different direction, leaving the leader there. Kai, Tear, we are leaving now. Naruto pulled out his Zanpakuto, then made a rip in space leading back to the human come on. The room was completely empty aside from Naruto, Orihime, and Ichigo. Get ready Orihime, you don't know what he might do. The barrier was made and Ichigo was tied up. Naruto put his hand on Ichigo's head and soon the demonic Reishi seemed to surge up and covered Naruto's hand entirely. Naruto looked unmoved and unchanged as he began pulling out Kurama out little by little. Ichigo on the other hand wasn't looking too good, his soul was shaking and quivering and starting to lose a lot of its stability. The red light soon enveloped the whole room and Orihime soon lost sight but still focused her power. Inside however, Ichigo and Naruto were in extreme pain. Kurama was howling inside Ichigo as parts of his body start being separated and his power was practically destroying Ichigo's inner world. In Ichigo's mindscape, I'm not gonna lose this power that easily. Ichigo's inner hollow soon began to pull Kurama back as well and with the demonic power it's been absorbing from Kurama, it seemed like he could do it. Zangetsu was nowhere inside as he had become a part of hollow Ichigo as well. It was soon that in the painful game tug-a-rope. It was then that Menma made his move. While Naruto was slowly sucking out Kurama, Menma went into Ichigo's mind while he was still connected. You will stop or I'll make you. Menma said with Hira held tight in his hand. Fine, after I kill you, I'll stop this foolish transfer and eat that beast's power till my stomach is full. Hollow Ichigo then charged Menma with Tensa Zangetsu in his hand and in a burst of wind was in front of him immediately. In a split second Hira flashed them out of view but Menma was still too slow. Menma then created over 1 million of shadow clones inside Ichigo's crumbling mindscape. The best case scenario would be Ichigo losing his mindscape completely and his hollow self would die. Hira and Menma could go back at any time, but not before they were sure they couldn't help save Ichigo. All of the shadow clones dogpiled on hollow Ichigo. Menma stood there learning each and every one of hollow Ichigo's moves. And after the last clone and a big part of Ichigo's mindscape was gone, Menma charged with killer intent. This thing would not stop, not until all life was gone from the world and after. No more words needed to be said, only death could end this battle now. They both soon charged and crossed blades once again, while the world around them was crumbling into dust. Outside, Naruto and Ichigo were struggling for survival as their bodies were becoming damaged and healing at the same time. Orihime was trying hard to drown out the screaming as someone suddenly broke down the door. The light blinded her vision, but she felt something. Someone had just broke her shield. Then another light filled the room, it was bright a whitish green, and the screaming soon stopped. The light had soon faded and in the room now was a single person. She was a beautiful woman with wheat blonde hair. She had big breasts, average height, a green Hiori, a grey kimono underneath, blue-grey pants and sandals. Who are you? Orihime asked. She didn't say a word as she tended both Ichigo and Naruto's wounds, but only one word could describe her right now. Pissed. Both Naruto and Ichigo were unconscious and were laying on Naruto's couches. Tsunade had just finished patching them up and was now sitting on Naruto's couch. The rest of the Jinchuriki were there too, but they were moving as far away as they could from her. Ichigo's friends were there also, but they were sitting in silence. Naruto's house looked ordinary. The walls were a nice shade of brown, with a few old pictures. He had 3 couches, a long one that was pressed against the wall, and the other 2 were a fair distance away from it. He had 2 tables, one at the other end of the room, while the other was in between the couches. The kitchen was also nearby. Hiori was sitting on the couch with Naruto's head laying on her lap while she ran her hand through the hair of her lover. Naruto had soon enough began to stir until he finally woke up. "What happened?" Naruto said with a massive headache. The first thing Naruto noticed was Tear. She looked as beautiful as always, but still had that aura of maturity. She helped Naruto sit upright again. Naruto looked around. He noticed the scared Jinchuriki, the unconscious Ichigo, his friends, and Tsunade. Hey Granny G, good to see you again." The vein then appeared on top of Tsunade's head. She walked over and did the unthinkable. She punched Naruto and he disappeared in a puff of smoke. "I expected as much. He ran before we had a chance to talk," Tsunade said angrily. She then walked over to Kai and did the same thing. He also poofed into smoke. But Naruto and Kai, they were already miles away from Naruto's house. "Ancestor, is this truly alright? I told you, after I get back Kurama I would visit my descendants, and if I stayed there any longer I would have been killed." As Naruto was saying this, Kai could have sworn he saw his ancestor sweating bullets. If this Tsunade was as strong as his ancestor had said, then he's have a ton of things to worry about. "So please tell me, where do we need to go?" Naruto asked. "There is a company with the family crest. I shall lead the way for you, ancestor." About a half hour later they arrived in front of a giant building. It was not just huge, it was enormous. It was a skyscraper. It had revolving doors in the front, a fountain in front of the building, and it had dark glass so no one could see inside. Impressive. So is this where you come from?" "No, ancestor, I'm from the American branch." "I see, so have you been to the Japanese branch before?" "I like to know a little about the people I'm meeting. And the family I never knew seems to make me a little curious," Naruto said. "I have been here many times. They are strict on their methods," Kai said, not looking directly at Naruto. They both walked inside and were soon met by a bunch of people. They all had some similar features such as black or blonde hair. Some had the same blue eyes as Naruto but not all. They looked like they belonged from all over the world. There were children also. They were all going their separate ways. On the wall were pictures of people who looked like Naruto. "Kai, are they my descendants too?" "Yes, they were the clan's head. Just how much did I miss while I was traveling around?" Soon enough a little girl ran toward Naruto and jumped him with a hug. "Well now, who are you?" She had wheat blonde hair, purple eyes, and was wearing a pink kimono with the Uzumaki swirls. "You're him, aren't you? You're Naruto Uzumaki." After she said that, everybody from all around had stopped moving and looked straight at him. No one moved or even breathed, but the little girl seemed excited. "Wow, I guess you guys didn't inherit my sense of humor. So who's gonna welcome me?" An old man began to walk up to Naruto. He had striking similarities like Naruto himself, except his eyes were a light shade of green. "Oh my ancestor, after many years of searching we have found you. So you're this faction's head, you have done well, good job," Naruto said. "Your presence alone is an honor enough," the old man assured. Soon enough all the clan members soon swarmed him with praise and questions. "Okay, enough," the head said, "if you would. The other branches are gathering. They came as soon as they heard." I was looking at his ancestor in amazement. None of the clan's heads have ever wanted to meet in place willingly, but this was the power of a long-time bond and the fact that Naruto had a giant responsibility. A few hours later, Naruto was in a boardroom and in it were filled with 6 men and women each. Each one of them looked different, but some very similar. Naruto looked at each one of them carefully and analyzed them like how Kakashi did him many centuries ago. Some of them were old and the others were young. There was an empty chair that looked more grand than the others. That's where Naruto took his seat. "Well now, I hear you guys were looking for me, so what was it you spent all this time for?" Naruto said with a goofy smile. All of turned their attention to him. Out of the corner of Naruto's eyes he saw one of them sweat even though he tried to look absolutely calm. In that time Naruto threw a kunai at him, giving a cut. No one noticed until the thud hit the wall. "You know silence isn't a good idea, so why did you try to find me?" Naruto said with a more serious stare. "Now get down to business." One of the women cleared her throat. "I am Renee Ushio, from the American branch. It is an honor to meet you, ancestor." She had black hair tied in a bun, blue eyes and a piercing on her right ear. "As you probably heard from Kai, our family has been in a power struggle for quite some time. It is about who will lead our family. Our family history has been routed all back to the founding of your 2 children. Now we, their children, are in all out to pick our leader. We figured since you started our family, you should pick who will lead the family." Naruto looked at them blankly. He stood up and made 12 shadow clones, and they simultaneously smacked all of them at once. "So you spent centuries looking for me and started all this?" Naruto said, pointing everywhere. "Just so I could pick an heir. I swear you kids inherited your grandmother's sense of humor." Naruto sighed, reminiscing. "Alright, take me to the training room and bring in the children and get ready for battle. I'll settle this there." As usual, Naruto had a plan. Meanwhile, he made 3 clones to go back. 3 because there was a real likely chance that Tsunade was going to kill him. The clones were sent and a few hours later he was at the giant room with a dojo where the little ones trained. The room was big, like the size of an entire floor of a hotel big. It was now packed with people. From the little kids to the oldest men. They were all standing behind a wall of protective glass so they could watch but not interfere or get injured. Naruto was on the floor with a meditative pose and his usual clothes. Meanwhile, the 12 leaders were there, looking like they were preparing to fight for the bitter end for the title of leader. Everyone from all around seemed to anticipate a good fight, although they were scared about what was going to happen. Even the ref looked scared as he announced the beginning of the fight. That fight start. It was then that 3 of the 12 dove right in. They soon formed a series of hand seals. The first one was a man who had dark skin, a shaved head, but a tattoo of the Uzumaki swirl on his shoulder. He looked nervous, and he soon blew out a dragon made out of fire sent directly at Naruto. The second was another man with brown hair, Caucasian. He had no distinguishing features like Naruto, and his eyes were green. After he did his hand seals, both his hands started crackling like lightning, and he aimed to kill. The last was a woman. She was Hispanic, with brown hair, a tight suit, and she used a summoning. It was a gecko with an Uzumaki headband, standing on 2 hind legs, and had 2 sickles in his hand. In that split second, Naruto opened his eyes. His slits were sideways and rectangular shaped, the outer rim of his eyes were turned yellow. Naruto looked calm, and the audience were watching in anticipation for what was to happen. When the dragon had come forth, Naruto did what no one would have expected. He punched it, imploding the jutsu and causing a large smoke screen. The gecko had took advantage of the smoke screen and had tried to attack Naruto with the 2 sickles in its hand. Naruto had whipped his body backwards, and the power he showed had cleared the smoke almost immediately. When the smoke was gone, people could see that the sickles were stopped by Naruto's finger. The lizard looked scarred and it was soon pushed back. It jumped back with both sickles in a protective pose to protect its master. The other guy had come in trying for an easy win. He did a furious number of jabs hoping to catch Naruto off guard with his sped but failed. Naruto dodged each and every one of them, and when he was too exhausted to move, Naruto punched him straight across his face, sending him flying at high speeds until he was stopped by the glass wall. The kids were cheering and awed by the amazing power Naruto held. The adults were fearing Naruto's power, but also awed. Naruto cracked his neck and his fingers and finally gave out a cocky smile. So, who's next? Back at the house, Tsunade was again sitting on the couch. She was fascinated by the TV and she was chugging away at the sake Naruto kept in the cabinets. It was then that those 3 clones Naruto had sent had come back. And all 3 of them looked terrified. "Hey, how about you go first?" said one of the clones to the other. "What? Why me? You were here the longest, so it's only fair that you die first," said the other clone. The clone just sighed as he slowly opened the door, and as he did, he ducked the sake bottle that was aimed for his head. "Alright Naruto, it's time you explain to us what's going on and who that woman is," Ichigo said, walking in front of the group. "Okay, I guess you guys deserve to know that much," said one of the clones. "We are about to enter a war that will make all other wars seem like kid fights. This is Lady Tsunade. She was brought back along with a lot of other people to help fight this war," said the other. "You see, I made ask the Spirit King to return the souls from the lost age to the present. For this favor I told him he could have my soul," said the last clone. It got quiet and the Jinchuriki could no longer look at one of their own. It made sense now. All the risks, all the moves, was just to prepare an army and to prepare Ichigo to be the next Jinchuriki. With this it could all be over. The clones didn't even see it coming. Tsunade jumped from the couch and slammed 2 of the clones to the ground. "Naruto, I'm betting that your plan will fail," Tsunade said with a drunken smile. "Wait, why is she betting against Naruto?" Renji asked, clearly confused. "It's Tsunade's luck. In the old days, she was called the legendary sucker. Whatever she bet on was said to fail. She's betting against Naruto because she has hope that he will win this war," said Yugito Nai. "You all should return home. It's been a long day and you'll need rest for what is coming," said Yugura. Back with Naruto. Naruto had just defeated the last of the heads. When he was done, he started to stretch. "Long time, no see Sasuke," said Naruto when he finished. Behind him was the man himself. He was wearing the same clothes he did when he was on the run with Orochimaru. "Naruto, you're looking well," Sasuke said. "Lots of things have happened since things happened. I never thought you would find me this quickly. It took my kid centuries to find me," Naruto acknowledged. Not a single person was moving because they couldn't. The entire building was trapped in a large ninjutsu casted by Sasuke's eternal Manjukam Sharingan. "So tell me, would you find me now?" Naruto said, turning into his deity form. Naruto and Sasuke were at a stare down after so many years. Both of them did not flinch or budge an inch. It wasn't until Naruto cracked a grin that they both moved. "It's good to see you again, Sasuke," Naruto said and offered his hand to his longtime friend and rival. Sasuke gave a small chuckle and shook the legend's hand with the eternal Manjikam Sharingan in full gleam. "It's good to see you again, Naruto," he said calmly. Sasuke looked around and spoke again. "So this is the future and this is what your children have created. It's not bad, Naruto, but the village is gone and so is what Itachi and all the other shinobi who gave their lives tried to protect." Naruto knew what Sasuke said was true. The hidden leaf and almost all of the ninja world is now gone. At least in this world. During the end of the war with Madara, many shinobi had perished and had been given proper burials. However, once everything had calmed down and the world continued to age, it seems that nobody needed the shinobi anymore. Times had changed and with time many people came to forget the teachings and started integrating with the times. The children of Naruto's past comrades had also been integrated with the times and don't even know about the past battles that shaped the world to what it was today. All that remains of the past time were Naruto and the other Jinchuriki. Their story had been buried in the sands of time and they themselves had nothing but to age with time. This is what happens in time, Sasuke. Change happens and it's inevitable, it's only in death will time stand still. Naruto said with a sad smile. However, that doesn't mean that everything we did and fought for is gone forever. In a certain place, on an important wall, he put his life story as a proud ninja. The wall was one of the few things in the world that stood the test of time and still is. It's known as the Western Wall. Also, Naruto couldn't help but tag important places in the world, such as the Great Wall of China and such, with the kanji for ninja. Others may have seen the act and wonder, but Naruto and the other Jinchuriki would know and never forget it. "I didn't come to you for small talk, Naruto, why did you bring us back?" His gaze soon got more tense. Sasuke was not a person of many words, but his eyes could tell enough for him. Naruto soon explained the situation to his long-gone friend and just as soon as he came, he left leaving Naruto to continue his battle. In a place beyond the Soul Society, all of the past shinobi from during the battle with Madara had come and gathered. The place of gathering was in a place that is in the same realm of the Soul Society. The realm of the dead was infinite, but so was the Soul Society, but that did not mean the Soul Society was the only place in that realm. The Soul Society was per se a giant land overlooking something. The thing it was overlooking was the whole ninja world. The ninjas of that time and before had something that made it impossible for them to enter the Soul Society, or perhaps maybe the Soul King didn't want to bring the two together, the reason was unknown. There the ninjas would live in an eternal place. Hueco, Mundo and the Soul Society are separated by a very thin and very easily broken wall of reality by those powerful enough to break it. Their many swarms o hollows can pass through. And thus this was how the ninja world thrived. With the world and them being at peace with each other, they no longer needed missions to steal or kill, which did kill off the shinobi of the living world, but their missions would be against the hollows or whatever else was needed help with. However, it was a place where Naruto and the other Jinchuriki were not allowed to go. The dead and the living could not interact with each other in the realm of the dead. At least until they themselves have died. The Soul Society was the only exception. Now with things as bad as they are now and the offer Naruto made to the Soul King, their help can now be used and Naruto was planning on using everything he had to win this war and assure peace again to the world. Even now all of the shinobi villages were on mission alerts for battle against the hollows. And the village hidden in the leaves after death times were once again peaceful. Though the only means of death was to be eaten by a hollow, everything seemed fine. The memorial of the stone faces of the Hokage had gone to many good shinobi. The first being Hashirama Senju, second Tobirama Senju, third Hiruzen Sarutobi, fourth Minato Namikaze, fifth Tsunade Senju, sixth Naruto Uzumaki, seventh Sasuke Uchiha, eighth Konohamaru Sarutobi, and now they were on their ninth Hokage. The only child of Sasuke Uchiha, Iru Uchiha. The Cage now have since been able to resign their position and give it to someone they deem worthy of their title and may then live their afterlife. They can choose to fight the hollows or stay back and protect the village from them or do whatever they wished. Recently they all have noticed a distinct lack of hollows. Usually that would be a good sign, but there was something ominous about it. Like the calm before a storm. They were waiting for Tsunade to return, but things might have taken a turn for the worse. What if Naruto was 10 tails Jinchuriki and Bleach? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.